Chapter 1649. Later, they found out that this beautiful little bird was raised by their little Marshall nephew. They couldn't help but silently curse in their hearts. How could little Marshall's sister raise such a useless spiritual pet for her own son? Although it looked cute, it couldn't protect their little Marshall nephew. How could it be compared to those powerful spiritual pets? Now that they heard the little phoenix say it had a way, they didn't take it to heart. Xiao Bao nodded. Try it. The little phoenix immediately flew out from his back happily, its beautiful feathers circling in the air. The originally dark tunnel immediately became bright and vibrant. It was indescribably beautiful. Then the little phoenix opened its mouth and let out a clear cry. It spat out a ball of fire towards the iron door. However, this fire was really too small. It was about the size of a baby's fist, and after it flew out of the little phoenix's mouth, it seemed to be too heavy. It fell down and almost fell to the ground. The little phoenix was anxious. It hurriedly flapped its wings and flew over, blowing and blowing. Luo Yu and the others didn't dare to look straight at it. Although Qiuqiu's appearance was 100 times better than a normal fiery bird. But this strength was really, what kind of fireball was it spat out? Even the spiritual fire condensed from their fire spiritual power was bigger than it. However, the little bird was finally able to spit out spiritual fire. So Luo Yu and the others still gave it face and applauded. Qiuqiu is not bad. At least the fireball it spat out is slightly bigger than before. Yes, Qiuqiu has already done very well, but leave the rest to me. Before the last word could be said, the fireball landed on the iron door. The fireball landed on the metal door. In an instant, a silent golden flame suddenly sprang up from the metal door. In just a short moment, the talisman array on the iron door was completely burnt. Moreover, only a few breaths had passed. Not a single sound was made. The words of comfort from the Xiao Yao sect were stuck in their throats. They were completely dumbfounded. The little phoenix happily hovered around Xiao Bao. Little big brother, did Qiuqiu become stronger? Ever since little big brother became stronger, Qiuqiu discovered that it also became stronger. And after little big brother came back, the ball of fire became bigger. I'm so happy. Xiao Bao rubbed the little phoenix's head. You did well. The little phoenix immediately happily kept circling around, and the entire corridor was filled with its clear cries. When it was happy enough, the little phoenix looked at Luo Yu, 7th Martial Uncle. What did you say I would give you? Luo Yu. Nothing. At this moment, the fat rabbit in Xiao Bao's arms was already wriggling its butt impatiently. If it wasn't because it was too big, it would be too big. Luo Yu saw the rabbit in Xiao Bao's arms wriggling nonstop. She couldn't help but say, Xiao Bao, why don't you keep the rabbit? The scene inside might be a little bloody, and it wouldn't be good if the fight scared the rabbit. Look, it's trembling in fear. Xiao Bao pressed down on the fat rabbit's body, which was about to bounce out, and raised his head to look at Luo Yu. 7th Martial Ant, it's okay. Rabbit is very powerful and isn't afraid of anything. Rabbit is only hungry. Luo Yu thought to herself, if you're hungry, why don't you feed it spirit fruits? Chapter 1650. Rabbit! Lil Bao cried out in alarm and hurriedly followed. When the Xiao Yao sect disciples saw this, they realized that if they let their beloved martial nephew get hurt, they would commit suicide. Therefore, they quickly followed after them. Just as they turned the corner, they heard the roar of a wild beast. Yun Ruhan and the others' expressions changed greatly. They quickened their steps, but when they saw the scene in front of them, their pupils shrank. At the end of the corner was a place that looked like a coliseum. There were all kinds of strange monsters inside. Some had scales, some had tentacles all over their bodies, and some had sharp claws and fangs. The only thing they had in common was that every one of them looked ferocious and had crimson eyes. It was obvious that they did not have any intelligence. Between the tunnel and the Colosseum, there was originally a barbed wire fence. But now, the wire fence had been bitten through by something. Lil Bao and the fat rabbit had already entered. The monsters inside immediately smelled the scent of living people. They let out beast-like roars and excitedly pounced towards Lil Bao and the fat rabbit. One of the monsters that was covered in scales opened its mouth and stretched out a bright red, narrow, and barbed tongue towards Lil Bao. Lil Bao! The people of the Xiaoyao sect screamed and wanted to rush over. But it was too late. Even if they could fly, they wouldn't be able to make it in time. They couldn't imagine what would happen if their little martial nephew was harmed under their protection. How would they explain it to their little martial sister when they returned? Luo Yu was so anxious that her eyes turned red. She almost wanted to close her eyes and didn't dare to look. Only Lil Bao, who was surrounded by the monster, remained calm. He lightly swung the Bixia sword in his hand. The black sword spun in the air and fell to the ground with a clatter. It actually pierced through the monster's tongue and nailed it to the ground. Ah! The monster let out a mournful roar. It wanted to retreat, but it couldn't move at all. Not only could it not move, but the Bixia sword with its tongue in it lit up with a green and white light. It was as if something was flowing from the monster's body into the Bixia sword. When the fat rabbit saw this, it immediately became anxious. It let out a loud howl and suddenly jumped onto the monster's head. Its claws clawed and its mouth bit. He didn't bite out a mouthful of flesh and blood, but he pulled out a ball of black gas. The Bixia sword couldn't stand it any longer. It let go of the monster's tongue and pounced forward with a buzzing sound. "You damned rabbit, put down my food. This is mine." "Oh, mine. All the food is my fat rabbit's. Bastard, how dare you steal my food? I'll chop you to death." "Whoa, woo. You dare steal my beast's soul? I'll bite you to death." Therefore, the people of the Xiaoyao sect, who had just arrived in a panic, witnessed a scene that completely shattered their worldview. They saw the worn-out flying sword that they looked down upon, and the adorable white-furred rabbit that looked like an ornamental pet. The two of them were slaughtering the monsters in the Colosseum while fighting over the black gas that floated out of the monsters. Biting, fighting, cursing, howling, they resorted to every conceivable means. Chapter 16:51. In the end, the two of them angrily rushed in front of Xiao Bao, asking him to be the judge. "Oh, little master, this bad sword stole the fat rabbit's beast soul. You have to help the fat rabbit. Little master, you can't be biased, bullying the kind and fearing the evil." The evil warding sword's strength increased. That is equal to little master's strength increased. This damn fat rabbit even dared to steal little master's things. Little master, you must not tolerate it. "Oh, wong. Roar. Bang, bang, bang." As the rabbit and the sword spoke, they began to quarrel again. In the huge Colosseum, the swords flashed, sand flew, and stones rolled. The murderous aura was enough to make a golden core stage cultivator's legs weak. The people of the Xiaoyao sect were dumbfounded, not knowing how to react. But soon, they saw their precious martial nephew in the center of the storm. The small figure in the rain of swords was like a small boat that could be overturned at any time. The few of them wanted to rush over and carry Xiao Bao out of the battle. But before they could move, their hearts inexplicably jumped. They felt that the next scene might be a slap in the face. Sure enough, in the next moment, they saw Xiao Bao, who could not bear it anymore, walk forward expressionlessly. He mercilessly punched the sword and the rabbit. Bang! The first punch, the arrogant, evil warding sword buzzed twice and fell to the ground powerlessly. Bang! The second punch, the fat rabbit somersaulted in the air, whined twice, and obediently burrowed into Xiao Bao's arms. Xiao Bao coldly said, "Too noisy." Woo-woo. The fat rabbit rubbed its head in his arms, its butt and short tail swaying outside. "This rabbit will not stoop to your stupid sword's level." The evil warding sword buzzed, and with a whoosh, it shot into Xiao Bao's chest, disappearing without a trace, leaving behind a string of clamors. "For little master's sake, I'll let you go today. One day, I'll turn you into stir-fried rabbit meat." Xiao Bao touched the fat rabbit in his arms and comforted the frightened little phoenix on his shoulder. He then turned to Luo Yu and the others. Martial Uncle, it's settled. Let's go and find Uncle Z." "Oh, okay. It's good that it's settled. Hee hee, if only the solution wasn't so dreamy." In an empty room in the underground laboratory, Di Yudeo's trusted aides, He Shanjung and Lu Ruoxuan, stared at the youth lying on the bed without blinking. The young man's 4 limbs were tied up, and his skin turned black and purple. His entire face was contorted from the pain. From time to time, he would let out a shrill, beast-like howl. He Shan and Lu Ruoxuan, as well as the other black-clothed men in the room, were excited to see this. He Shan, Miss Lu was right, this person's body can really bear the Chang Jiao's beast soul. Miss Lu is the main reason why the longevity of the Heavenly Flood Dragon was successful. Master will definitely not treat you unfairly. Lu Ruoxuan looked at Su Zi, who was moaning and struggling on the bed. She felt an indescribable joy in her heart. Back then, it was this young man who used his gentle and innocent face to trick him into drinking the poison that pierced his intestines. How could this little bit of pain be enough for him? Chapter 1652. Hishan promptly stops her. Miss Lu, what are you doing? There are only 3 Chang Jiao souls. After Jiao Tian succeeds in extending his lifespan, the elixir refined from his flesh and blood can at most extend his lifespan by a year. However, if it turns into 6 Chang Jiao souls, then it's different. Perhaps it can let him enjoy immortal fortune forever and live as long as the heavens? Hishan hesitates. The Chang Jiao's beast soul is very powerful. If by any chance his body can't bear it, then all his efforts would be in vain. Lu Ruo? She tenderly smiles as she approaches him, rubbing her ample bosom against him. Don't worry, I have a sense of propriety. When he can't bear it anymore, I'll take out the Chang Jiao's soul. Big brother this person fed this servant gut-piercing poison at that time, almost taking this servant's life. If he can't be taught a lesson, how can this servant be reconciled? Listening to Lu Ruo, her coquettish words, smelling the fragrance on her body, Hishan's heart is like a monkey galloping like a galloping horse, his mind and soul captivated. Fine, Miss Lu, you can deal with him however you want. Lu Ruo? Her eyes flash with deep disgust and pride. She turns around and walks in front of Su Zi. Su Zi suddenly opens his eyes. Meeting her gaze, if you have the ability, kill me. Kill you? Lu Ruo laughs sinisterly. If I kill you so easily, wouldn't it be too easy for you? Don't worry, you'll definitely die. However, I'll wait until you're in a state where you can neither live nor die. Then I'll refine your flesh and blood into an elixir. Little sister will never let go. Pass. You. Hearing him mention Junmayan, Lu Ruo, her face instantly distorts. This woman is like her natural nemesis, sending her into an abyss of eternal damnation again and again. But it doesn't matter. Very soon, she'll be able to climb up a high branch. As for Junmayan, she can only watch helplessly as the people around her die, without a complete corpse. How much remorse and pain would she feel? I wonder if she saw Jiang Xinyu, that slut's miserable appearance? That scene must be very interesting. It would make her very happy. Lu Ruo? She looks at Su Zi with a thick malice in her eyes, and shakes the black elixir in her hand at him. If you want that slut Junmayan to come and save you, then she has to be able to find this place. Unfortunately, they would never be able to find this place. As for you, you can only be a fish in my hand, waiting to be slaughtered by me. Right now, you only have 3 Chang Flood Dragon Beast souls in your body, and you're already in so much pain. Take a guess if I stuff 4, 5, 6 Chang Jiao Beast souls into your body. What would happen to you? Su Zi's pupils constricted slightly, revealing deep fear and despair in his eyes. The pain of his divine soul being torn apart just now was like hell. If he had 3 more beast souls, seeing the fear and despair on Su Zi's face, Lu Ruo? He laughed out loud and stuffed the beast soul elixir in his hand into his mouth. However, at this moment, a loud bang suddenly sounded. Lu Ruo? Before he could even react, he was sent flying, crashing heavily into a large urn at the side. The large urn shattered with a loud bang, and the black beast soul elixirs all tumbled to the ground. Lu Ruo? She screams miserably, her whole body pressed against the fragments of the urn, blood flowing everywhere. Chapter 1653. As soon as she finished, dozens of men in black rushed out from all directions. Each of them was at the peak of the evil warding realm. Lung Yuma raised her broadsword and smiled sinisterly. My broadsword has endured for a long time. Now I can finally start killing. Along the way, their desire to protect their little martial nephew was completely extinguished from the moment it was boiling. In the end, they were led by Xiao Bao and won without doing anything. That felt really good. As martial uncle and martial uncle, their self-esteem had suffered a serious blow. At this moment, they only wanted to have a good fight to vent their frustrations and show off their power in front of their precious nephew. Therefore, in less than 15 minutes, the dozens of men in black were all lying on the ground, barely breathing. Ishan stared at them in horror. You and a rebel? This is College Head Jai's place. You just barged in. Aren't you afraid of being expelled from the school? Luo Yu squinted her eyes and said with a faint smile, Oh, I didn't know if you didn't tell me. So this is College Head Jai's territory. I didn't expect the college head of the Starry School to do something like this in the school of the Emperor's Star. Hishan's face paled and he shut his mouth, not daring to say another word. Suddenly, Su Zi's painful scream came from the stone bed at the side. Yin Ruhan and the others rushed over and saw that Su Zi's skin seemed to have been hit by something. It kept bulging and sinking, and the heart-wrenching screams he let out were simply unbearable to listen to. Luo Yu asked, What do we do? Should we carry him out to find our little sister? Yun Ruhan reached out to touch him, but Su Zi screamed even louder. Seeing this, Hishan couldn't help but laugh maniacally. Don't waste your energy. His body has already been stuffed with the souls of 4 Changjiao. He will either become a monster or explode and die. And before he dies, he will be tortured day and night, living a life worse than death. No one in this world can save him. Just as he finished speaking, he saw a delicate and pretty little boy carrying a furry fat rabbit in one hand and dragging a huge longsword in the other, slowly walk in. Hishan was confused as to why a child would come here. The fat rabbit and the long sword suddenly trembled at the same time. Then, without waiting for anyone to react, they scrambled to be the first to fall to the ground. Scattered on the ground were several dozens of beast soul pills, which contained the beast soul of Changjiao. Moreover, it was the last beast soul elixir that Diyu Dao had. The fat rabbit opened its mouth, and with a sweep of its long tongue, a dozen beast soul dawn were directly swallowed by it. Not to be outdone, the Bishia sword buzzed and swept in a circle. The originally shiny black beast soul elixir immediately lost its luster and shattered. In just a few short breaths, the beast soul pills on the ground had either disappeared or shattered. Not a single one was left behind. Hishan trembled as he looked at the scene in front of him. He almost fainted. This was dozens of beast soul elixirs. If any human or beast swallowed one, they would explode and die. But what was this rabbit? It actually swallowed 20 to 30 pills, and there wasn't even the slightest reaction. And that sword, how could a sword devour beast souls? What was going on? Chapter 1654. One stood on the top of the rabbit's head, the other on its chest, dragging and pulling. The fat rabbit burped and lazily jumped back into Xiao Bao's arms. It twisted its buttocks and turned over comfortably, letting Xiao Bao scratch it. Seeing that there's so much food and that I'm already full, I won't argue with you, you damn bitch. The evil warding sword also shook its body, which was clearly much brighter than before, and flew back into Xiao Bao's body. The feeling of being full of energy was so comfortable. Bishia felt that it was about to be unsealed again. Su Zi, whose beast soul had disappeared, immediately stopped screaming. Although he did not wake up, his expression became calm and peaceful. Hishan stood there in a daze for a long time, then suddenly screamed, Those are all precious beast soul pills given by the noble. Only by stuffing these beast souls into people's bodies and making them into heavenly longevity jiao can we report to the noble. You actually swallowed them all? Swallowed them. Are you looking to die? Yun Ruhan's expression darkened. So you've stuffed B's souls into those half-human, half-ghost monsters? Those are the missing students of the Starry School, right? Hishan sneered. So what? Those are just useless outer sect disciples. There are two inner sect disciples, but they have no power or influence. It's their good fortune for us to use this kind of trash for our experiments. Let me tell you, these useless people merge with the Chang Jiao's beast souls to make the elixir of immortality. This elixir is to be given to the most powerful noble in the Ziyun realm. Do you know what will happen to you if you dare to destroy the noble's things? Hearing that these people had actually captured innocent students and used them to refine pills, Yun Ruhan's group's anger flared like a raging inferno. This was a school that was supposed to educate people, but they treated young cultivators who came to seek knowledge as experimental subjects and trampled on them. They turned them into monsters that were neither human nor ghost, then casually killed and discarded them. How could someone like this be a teacher? A college chief? Seeing that they did not speak, Hishan thought that they were afraid. I advise you, if you know what's good for you, kneel and beg for mercy, then leave obediently. Otherwise, the next ones to become the Chang Jiao's vessel will be you. Yu couldn't take it anymore and suddenly moved her fingers. Hishan was talking when he suddenly felt something small fall on his body. He opened his mouth and was about to speak when he suddenly felt something rushing into his body. Then, a heart-wrenching pain surged from his internal organs, throat, and esophagus. Ah! A moment later, Hishan fell to the ground, twitching. Black blood flowed out of his eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. This was a miniature puppet controlled by Yu. During this period of time, the people of the Xiao Yao school had been practicing hard, hoping to awaken their domains. Although Yu had yet to open the door to her domain, her control over the puppets had already reached an unimaginable level. Qin Ju stepped forward and carried Su Zi on her back. They were about to leave. Yu's expression changed. Where's Lu Ruoxuan? The woman who had just fainted in a pool of blood had already disappeared. Lung Yuma gritted her teeth and said, Damn it, this beast actually ran away again. Chapter 1655. Then, they saw D. Udeo's figure suddenly flash in front of them. Behind him were a few Golden Core deacons from the Academic Supervisory Committee. After D. Udao stood still, his eyes swept across the mess, and his body trembled violently because of anger and fear. A strong pressure, accompanied by a bone-piercing killing intent, filled every corner of the room and rushed toward Xiaobao and the people of the Xiaoyao sect. How dare you damage my beast soul elixir and ruin my lifespan? Today, I will make you beg for death. Under the moonlight, Lu Ruo, fleeing in panic in the Tsang Mountain, she touched her wounds from time to time and looked back in panic. When he realized that no one was chasing after him, he slowly stopped running. Unconsciously, a proud smile appeared on her face. See, she said that the heavens were looking after her. She was the favored child of the heavens and was destined to have a meteoric rise. Those lowly trash were destined to be trampled under her feet one day. At this moment, she suddenly heard a low sound of a zither. Lu Ruo? She stopped and was puzzled. How could there be zither music in the Danyang mountain range? Just as she was thinking about this, the spiritual plants around her suddenly made a rustling sound and shook gently. Under her feet, something was crawling quickly. It was as if something was surging in her direction. Lu Ruo? She had a bad premonition. Who was the one hiding in the shadows? Get out here. The grass was slowly moved, and then a chubby youth walked out of the tall bushes. Lu Ruo, do you remember me? Lu Ruo? Seeing the person, her heart that had been in her throat immediately calmed down, and a trace of contempt flashed across her eyes. Zheng Jiabao, what are you doing here? Fatty Zheng revealed a dazed smile. So you still remember me? Then do you remember Jiang Xinyu? Lu Ruo? Hearing this, she immediately frowned in disgust, and then giggled. So, you hooked up with Jiang Xinyu, a useless fatty and a shameless slut. What a good match. Upon hearing this, Zheng Xiaopeng's reddened eyes instantly turned bloodshot. His face instantly contorted into a sinister expression. Say it again if you dare. Ha ha. Lu Ruo. Looks like you've seen that bitch's pitiful appearance. How is it? As your junior sister, I treat her well, right? He specially found 7 or 8 strong men to serve her. In the end, they dug out her eyeballs, severed all the tendons and veins in her body, destroyed her dantian, and even cut off her fingers and tongue so that she could not send any messages. But I didn't expect that you didn't despise such a broken woman, and even guess that I was the one who did it. TSK, TSK, TSK. Such deep affection is really touching. Listen to Lu Ruo. As he recounted the process of torturing Jiang Xinyu, Zheng Little Fatty's entire body trembled. Tears rolled down her cheeks uncontrollably. After Jiang Xinyu woke up for the second time, he felt much better. He even gestured to Zheng Little Fatty to fetch some beautiful clothes for him. Zheng Little Fatty did not suspect anything and happily went to buy new clothes for her. However, when he returned, all he saw was Jiang Xinyu's cold corpse. Jiang Xinyu had committed suicide. He walked away quietly with a smile on his face. Chapter 1656. Zheng Little Fatty spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. He was filled with remorse, anger, heartache, and despair, but most of all, he had an irreconcilable hatred for the woman in front of him. Ever since he had woken up, Zheng Xiaopeng had sworn to himself that he would never, ever let Lu Ruochen win. This vicious slut, blood for blood. Zheng Jiabao clenched his teeth and said word by word, Lu Ruo, I swear, I will tear you to pieces. I will return the pain you inflicted on Xing you 10 times, 100 times more. Lu Ruo? His bloodthirsty eyes frightened her so much that her heart turned cold. Then he laughed out loud. Tear me to pieces? With just you? Ha ha, Zheng Jiabao, you are just a good-for-nothing who has just reached the first rank of Anidia. You actually want to tear me, a practitioner at the peak of Jinan stage, into pieces. Are you dreaming? As soon as she finished speaking, the melodious sound of the zither rang out again in the mountains. Lu Ruo? He felt as if the ground beneath his feet was cracking again. The sound of... Then, she heard a light and sweet female voice that sounded like the sounds of nature. Because he has me to help him. Hearing this voice, Lu Ruoyan's heart skipped a beat. His expression changed. Then, the rustling grass and trees that were brushing against her clothes suddenly flew to the sides, as if they were alive. The moonlight shone on a black-haired girl in a green robe. Her white skin was like the most sparkling and translucent porcelain under the moonlight, and her ink-black silky hair fluttered in the wind. A pair of enchanting peach blossom eyes carried a bone-chilling coldness as he looked over with a faint smile. It was like the reflection of light from the abyss in the depths of hell. Lu Ruo, his body suddenly stiffens, his heart welling up with instinctive fear and bone-piercing hatred. June. Mu Yin, why are you here? Mu Yin smiles faintly. I've been waiting for you here. No, that's impossible, she screamed. How did you know I would escape in this direction? Of course, Mu Yin doesn't know which direction she will escape to, but she had guessed that Lu Ruochen would not be able to escape. Eldest senior brother and the others probably wouldn't be able to catch her if she didn't run out of luck. As for Lu Ruo, the most likely direction was the Danyang mountain range. The Danyang mountain range was huge. If she escaped into the mountains, ordinary people would not be able to find her. But mine is different. She has been waiting here since early in the morning, playing the Tian Mo Chin. Myriad plants resonating and summer bug of ice were activated at the same time. At this moment, in the forest adjacent to the school of the Emperor Star in the Danyang mountain range, all the plants, snakes, insects, rats, and ants were her eyes. It was as if an inescapable net had been set up in the Danyang mountain range. Lu Ruo. No matter how heaven-defying his luck was, there was no way he could escape. Mu Yin coldly looks at her. What's the use of a dead person knowing how I found you? Lu Ruo, clenching her teeth, she says, Jun Mayan, don't be too arrogant. Even if you're powerful, you're still just a foundation establishment stage cultivator. I'm currently at the peak of Aurus Core stage. Do you really think that I'm afraid of you? Muyan doesn't pay attention to her at all. Instead, she looks at Zheng Xiaoping. Do you want to personally avenge Jiang Xinyu? Zheng Xiaoping grits his teeth and hisses. I dream of it. Chapter 1657. Lu Ruo. She has always been on guard against Mayan. However, when she sees that Mayan is just sitting in front of the Tian Mo Qin, not even having the intention to move, but letting Zheng Jiabao attack her, she almost wants to look up to the sky and howl. In the end, is Jun Mayan too arrogant, or is her brain broken? How could he let a piece of trash who had just entered the Anidia stage kill him? Did she really think that her cultivation at the peak of the Gold Core realm was just for show? Wait a minute. As long as she restrains Zheng Jiabao, that damn fatty, and tortures him bit by bit in front of Mayan, she doesn't believe that Mayan wouldn't be thrown into confusion. Lu Ruo? The more he thought about it, the more pleased he became. She felt that she was indeed the favored child of the heavenly Tao. All the luck was on her side. However, just as this thought flashed through her mind, suddenly, she felt a cold and heavy aura engulfing her entire body. The sound of the zither, which was originally just echoing in the air, suddenly seemed to have smashed heavily on her heart. Star Domain activated. Lu Ruo? He frowned and almost wanted to cover his ears. The sound of the zither was too noisy, so noisy that she couldn't breathe. Moreover, gradually, her hands and feet seemed to be tied by something. It was heavy and painful, and even lifting them required a lot of strength. On the contrary, Zheng Little Fatty's originally cumbersome body suddenly became as light as a swallow. All the spiritual energy in his body began to circulate, and there was no longer any obstruction. With a swing of the sword, spiritual energy surged, and the momentum was extremely powerful. This was definitely not the battle power of a level 1 fasting cultivator. Support battle skill greatly increases one's own combat power and reduces the enemy's combat power. Graceful Feather activated. Lu Ruo? He quickly dodged Zheng Little Fatty's slash, his face filled with surprise and doubt. However, at this moment, she could not afford to think too much. Lu Ruo? A fierce light flashed in his eyes, and his originally thin white fingers suddenly turned into sharp claws. There was a thick, baleful aura lingering around it. As soon as this baleful aura appeared, the surrounding temperature seemed to plummet. Zheng Little Fatty felt the blood and qi in his body churning, followed by a wave of coldness, as though the blood in his body was about to freeze. However, in the next moment, the sound of the zither rang out. Flashing golden runes appeared in front of Zheng Xiaoping. In the blink of an eye, he drew a soul-locking talisman in the air. As the evil energy rushed towards Zheng Little Fatty, the soul-locking talisman in the air emitted a dazzling light and started to burn. In the blink of an eye, the baleful aura that was so thick it seemed as if it wanted to devour Zheng Little Fatty disappeared without a trace. On the other hand, Zheng Little Fatty didn't feel cold at all. Instead, he felt refreshed, and his eyes were bright. Without a pen or paper, he created a talisman in the air. Mutual Affinity, Level 2 skill activated. Lu Ruo? Looking at the scene before him, his face paled. His frightened eyes keep looking at Jun Mayan, who is not far away. Before this, it wasn't that she hadn't heard of auxiliary musicians, but in this world, where could there be a musician like Jun Mayan, who could allow a weakling at the first level of Anidia to have the ability to fight against a cultivator at the peak of Jinan stage? No, this was impossible. She would never believe it. He wouldn't even be able to beat Zheng Jiabao, that trash. Lu Ruo? His expression turned ferocious, and he suddenly leaped into the air, ruthlessly slamming his palm toward Zheng Jiabao's head. Zheng Jiabao thrust his sword towards the sky. Chapter 1658. Boom! There's a loud noise as the two forces collide. Lu Ruo? Before she could rejoice, she suddenly feels a pain in her palm, followed by a huge force that heavily hits her chest, causing her to scream and fly out. After a long while, she awkwardly climbs up from the ground and sees that Zheng Jiabao's whole body is surrounded by a faint layer of light. This layer of light is like a protective cover, protecting Zheng Jiabao inside, making her unable to hit, unable to touch, and can only passively take a beating. Using musical notes to weave a protective cover. After being upgraded to the 3rd level, the protective cover has the ability to reflect damage. The lower the cultivation, the stronger the attack, the greater the reflected damage. Divine Hand weaves the sky, activates. Lu Ruo, her body keeps twitching. The surging pain in her body and the taste of blood in her mouth are telling her. She Lu Ruo, lost to Zheng Jiabao, who is at the 1st level of abstinence. No, she is a gold core stage cultivator. How could she lose to a waste at the abstinence stage? It's Mayan. All of this is Mayan's doing. She wants to use this method to humiliate herself. Lu Ruo, her eyes are filled with madness. She suddenly throws herself at Mayan. Slut, slut, I'm going to kill you. As long as I kill you, I will be the darling of heaven. Everything in this world will be mine. Mayan looks at Lu Ruo, who is throwing herself at her. She smiles. Her slender jade-like fingers gently pluck the strings. In the next second, an invisible thread twines around Lu Ruo. She was just about to pounce over when she suddenly stopped in midair, using music to control the trajectory of the enemy's movements, making the enemy unable to move within a small range. At this stage, it can only control people with weak minds and chaotic spiritual power. Prison drawing activates. Almost at the same time, the sound of the zither suddenly changes. The melodious music suddenly turned into the roar of war drums that resembled the sound of armored horses and spears. Swish, swish, swish. Hundreds of sword auras turn into light and shadow, ruthlessly penetrating Lu Ruo. Unable to move her body, Lu Ruo lets out a mournful scream. Blood splatters all over her body, penetrated into a sieve. Soundblade, 10,000 arrows shoot at once. Lu Ruo, who is like a mass of flesh and blood, he fell heavily to the ground, his body still twitching. The murderous aura swirled around her wounds and healed them from time to time. However, the damage caused by the hundreds of sound blades was too great. In a short period of time, when the murderous aura healed one wound, another wound would immediately bleed. Lu Ruo, his eyes widened and his lips trembled. Suddenly, he murmured hoarsely, "Divine, musician, I remember now." In Mei Xian's memories, it has the power to topple mountains and overturn seas. Just one Tian Mo Qin can subvert the 3 realms. Jun Mayan, you're a Shin musician. You're a demon that everyone in the world wants to punish you. You're a demon. Mayan slowly stands up and walks over to Lu Ruochen. In front of him, there was not the slightest trace of fear on the beautiful face, only a faint smile of mockery. "Aya, you actually recognized me. You, Lu Ruo," letting out a shrill howl. "I want to tell the world of your identity. Jumai, I want you to be on the winning and losing list and die a horrible death." Before she could finish yelling, she heard little fatty Zheng's faint voice in her ear. That's if you can say it out loud. Chapter 1659. Lu Ruo? She screamed in terror, and tears gushed out of her eyes. She looked at Zheng Little Fatty with pleading eyes. Zheng Little Fatty coldly laughed. "At that time, didn't XNU also beg you like this? Did you let her go?" He waved the knife in his hand. A cold light flashed and blood splattered. However, the one he cut down was not Lu Ruo. Not her tongue, but her ear. Zheng Little Fatty stuffed his ear into her mouth and forced her to chew and swallow it. At Lu Ruo, amidst her cries and pleas, Zheng Little Fatty cut off the tendons in her arms and legs one by one, crushing her dantian. He even chopped off her hands and feet and smeared honey with spiritual energy on her wounds. Due to Summerbug's language of ice and myriad plants chirping, the insects and demonic plants that had gathered here immediately smelled the spiritual energy and rushed over to eat Lu Ruoxiang. My body. Heart-wrenching screams came from Lu Ruochen again and again. From his mouth. In the beginning, she cursed and screamed. Then, she wailed and begged for mercy. In the end, she even wanted to die. Little fatty Zheng only asked her again and again. Did X and you beg you like this before? Did you let her go? Kill me. I beg you, please kill me. I know I'm in the wrong. I've let X and you down. I'm willing to pay with my life. Zheng Little Fatty pulled out her tongue and cut it off. Lu Ruan? Blood gushed out of his mouth, and he finally let out a cry for mercy. Zheng Little Fatty stared blankly at Lu Ruoxiang, who had been tortured by him to the point that she no longer resembled a human. She could no longer hold back her tears. XINU, XINU, even if I kill you, even if I take revenge 10 times or 100 times more, my XINU will never be able to return. Woo 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 woo. Can you return my XINU back to me? After crying for a long time, Zheng Little Fatty raised the dagger in his hand and was about to stab Lu Ruoxiang. My heart. However, before he could move, he was stopped by Mu Yin. You can't kill her like this. Zheng Little Fatty stares blankly as he raises his head to look at mine. Mu Yin sneers at Lu Ruoxiang. Her soul has fused with a devil cultivator at the tribulation stage. Even if you completely destroy her body, her soul can still be stored in her bones, waiting for her next resurrection. Besides, her karmic luck hasn't been exhausted yet. If you kill her, you'll suffer a backlash instead. A look of disbelief appeared on Zheng Xiaopeng's face. So, the reason she begged me to kill her wasn't because she wanted to repent or to atone for her sins. He abruptly turned to look at Lu Ruoxiang. Only Lu Ruo? After hearing Mine's words, he finally revealed a look of horror and despair. The hatred in Zheng Little Fatty's heart was like boiling lava, wanting to burn away his rationality. God Yi! With a put-on sound, he knelt in front of Mu Yin as he cried bitterly. God Yi, I beg you to take revenge for X and you. As long as this woman gets her retribution, I am willing to be your slave in my next life, doing anything for you. I will never regret this. Saying that, he directly pointed to the heavens and swore to the heavenly Tao that he would be loyal to Mu Yin for all eternity. If there was any betrayal, he would be punished by the heavens and destroyed by the earth, dying a horrible death. For a true cultivator, the oath they made to the heavenly Tao will come true. In other words, from this moment on, Zheng Jiabao had already recognized Mu Yin as his master and could never betray her for all eternity. Chapter 1660. Firstly, her identity as a Shen musician really can't be leaked out, not even the slightest mistake. Secondly, Zheng Little Fatty has now completely collapsed because of Jiang Sinyu's death. Only Jiang Sinyu's vengeance is hanging on to him. Once this life-saving straw disappears, Mu Yin is very afraid that he will collapse. Now, this vow of allegiance may become a shackle on his body, so that he won't abandon himself to despair. Mu Yin gently pats Zheng Little Fatty's shoulder and walks over to Lu Ruoxiang. She walks over to Lu Ruo and looks down at her, slowly revealing a smile. Lu Ruo? Since you know about Shen musicians, then do you know that Shen musicians have a skill called floating like a dream? Do you know what kind of interesting experience it is in the nightmare dream of floating like a dream? It's a dream, but it's not a dream. It's just a short quarter of an hour of zither music, but it can make your soul experience thousands of years of hellish torment. In that nightmare world, you may be a low-level vicious beast, hiding from the pursuit of cultivators, enduring the law of the jungle, and finally becoming a bowl of delicious food on someone else's plate. You may also be an ugly peasant woman without spiritual power, toiling all day, exposed to the wind and the sun, beaten by your husband, abandoned by your children, and finally dying of depression. Lu Ruo, what kind of life do you want to experience? I can weave it for you in floating like a dream. When you wake up, you will find that only a few days and nights have passed, but your hair is already turned white, your face is full of wrinkles, and your teeth have fallen out. The aging of the soul is truly irreversible. How long do you think it will take for me to grind away your so-called luck, your soul, and your murderous aura bit by bit? Jun Mai's sweet-sounding voice is clearly transmitted to Lu Ruo. It's like ants gnawing at her spirit, which is already on the verge of collapse. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Sparkling and translucent tears of blood flow from her eyes. That's true remorse, fear, and despair. However, it's all too late. Muyin slowly sits down beside her, a grim smile on her pale face. Lu Ruo, I originally didn't want to bother with you, but you kept bumping into me. Now he had taken innocent lives one after another. Bullshit favored child of the heavenly Tao. Do you really think that no one in this world can do anything to you? Lu Ruo? Woo 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 woo. You want to beg for mercy now? Too late. Her slender fingers gently plucked the strings, and melodious music surrounded them. She began to slowly use the musical notes to create bizarre and dazzling dreams. However, this time, it was not a beautiful dream, but a hellish nightmare. Lu Ruo, are you ready to welcome your first nightmare? Under the school of the Emperor's Star. Diyu Dao was just about to make his move when he heard a violent commotion coming from the entrance. Then, there were a few loud bangs. Before Diyu Dao could react, a large group of people had already rushed in from outside. Diyu Dao's expression changed drastically when he saw the people rushing in. Xing Danqing was in the lead, while Meng Baichuan and the other branch deans followed behind. When they came in and saw the scene in front of them, they were all dumbfounded. Chapter 1661. The people possessed by the Chang Jiao beast souls were different from Su Zi. They had consumed the beast soul elixir for too long, and their souls had been completely devoured by the Chang Jiao beast souls. Now that the Chang Jiao in their bodies had been eaten by the fat rabbit and the evil warding sword, all that was left was a corpse. However, without the effects of the Chang Jiao beast souls, their appearances returned to normal, so they were immediately recognized. The college chiefs of the other schools also recognized their students. Although most of them were from the outer sect, they were still their subordinates. They were both shocked and angry. Who killed our students? Behind the crowd, Chu Moli, who was sitting in a wheelchair, was slowly pushed forward by Ling Yuxing. The corners of Chu Moli's mouth hooked into a faint smile. The entrance to the secret passage was discovered in Dean Zhai's study. Shouldn't you be asking Dean Zhai about this? Xing Danqing had already rushed to Su Zi's side. After confirming that he was only unconscious and not in danger, she heaved a sigh of relief. Hearing this, she immediately glared at Diyu Dao and said, College Chief Zhai, shouldn't you give us an explanation for this? As the college chief of the Starry School, how could you do such a crazy thing underground? Diyu Dao's face turned green and white. His gaze swept across the people of the Alcade School, extremely gloomy. Just now, after sending Su Yiluan to investigate, he suddenly felt the jade pendant he wore become hot. Diyu Dao knew all too well what this jade pendant represented. It was a secret that he had hidden with all his might. It was something that he could not let anyone find out. Diyu Dao was scared out of his wits. Without even bothering to find an excuse, he hurried back to the school of the Emperor's Star. However, by the time he arrived, the thing that he had hidden away had already disappeared without a trace. There was even the aura of the demon race around the house. At this moment, there was nothing that Diyu Dao did not know. Su Yiluan had betrayed him. No, it should be said that Su Yiluan had evil intentions from the start when he appeared beside him. Diyu Dao gritted his teeth in hatred. He swore to destroy Su Yiluan's soul. Moreover, he had already guessed what Su Yiluan wanted to do. This was something that he could not allow to happen. However, before he could give chase, he heard a sound coming from underground. The heavenly life serpent was his last hope. No matter what, he couldn't give up. This time, he didn't even have time to care about Su Yiluan. He brought his trusted subordinates and hurried to the underground. He didn't even have the time to set up the defensive array glyphs. Unexpectedly, before he could make a move, Xing Danqing, Meng Baichuan, and the others barged in. He didn't even have time to hide. Diyu Dao took a few deep breaths before he said with a straight face, I also just discovered that there is such a mechanism in my study. What kind of place is this? Why are you here? He pointed at Yun Ruhan and the others and said harshly, Are you guys colluding with the demonic creatures and purposely causing trouble in the Starry School? Men, capture them for me. Huh? Dean Jai's ability to play the blame game is truly superb. I can't help but admire him. Luo Yu sneered. However, when Dean Jai rushed down and yelled at us to kill us, he didn't say that. Chapter 1662. As soon as he finished speaking, Ling Yuxing flashed and brought the unconscious Yishan before Chu Moli. Ling Yuxing was extremely fast. In a short distance, even nascent soul cultivators could not catch up to him. Just now, he had pretended to be a suspicious person and lured Xing Danqing and the others here. Diyu Dao obviously noticed his movements. Seeing the unconscious Yishan at the side, he knew that things were bad. But he could not catch up to Ling Yuxing's speed. Chu Moli lifted Yishan's collar. Somehow, Yishan opened his eyes slowly. His consciousness was still blurry. Seeing Diyu Dao, Yishan immediately screamed in fear. Master, Master, save me. They destroyed all the beast soul elixirs and still want to take Suzy away. Master, Chu Moli could not help but chuckle. College Chief Zhai, if I remember correctly, Yishan should be your confidant, right? What are the beast soul elixirs he mentioned? Why don't you let the people from the Arcade branch bring Junior Brother Su back? At this moment, Yishan's muddled thoughts slowly came back to him. When he saw the people gathered around and Diyu Dao's pale face, he was immediately flustered. Master, Before Yishan could finish his words, Diyu Dao suddenly moved and slammed his palm on the top of Yishan's head. In an instant, his brain exploded and his neck was broken. Yishan did not even make a sound before he died. Before he died, he stared at Diyu Dao in disbelief, as if asking, Master, why did you do this to me? However, Diyu Dao did not even look at him. With a righteous expression, he said, I did not think that there would be someone with such evil intentions lurking around me. College Chief Xing, I am willing to apologize to you. It is my fault for not teaching him well. That is why Feng Tian's disciple had such an accident in the Starry School. This was pushing the blame away, completely shirking his responsibility. But the people present were not fools. This matter was simply too strange and bizarre. Students disappeared from time to time in the Starry School. Now, the missing students were all found in the secret room under Diyu Dao's study. The person who did such a crazy thing was Diyu Dao's confidant. Now, without saying anything, he was silenced by Diyu Dao. Xing Danqing sneered. Dean Zhai, do you think we are fools? Do you think you can deceive us? I can tell you this. If you don't give me an explanation for what happened today, our Phoenix Sky Academy will definitely not let this matter rest. Not to mention Xing Danqing. Even the college chiefs of the various faculties were livid. Chief Zhai, it's because we trust you that we recommended you to be the college chief of the Starry School. But now, you actually dared to do such a thing to innocent students. We definitely won't let this matter rest. Meng Baichuan said coldly. Dean Zhai said that everything here has nothing to do with you. Fine, let's investigate this thoroughly. We must get to the bottom of this. During this period of time, I would like to ask Dean Zhai to temporarily suspend his position as dean. Diyu Dao gritted his teeth so hard that his teeth made cracking sounds. He wanted to tear the people of the Arcade branch and Su Yiluan into pieces. At that moment, he was absolutely sure that Su Yiluan and the Arcade branch were in cahoots. They had set up this trap to consign themselves to eternal damnation. However, would he Diyu Dao admit defeat so easily? The disappearance of the students had already happened before you guys arrived. This matter definitely has nothing to do with you guys. Xing Danqing took the opportunity to say, if there's really someone in the Starry School who can't tolerate you, you're welcome to join the Fengtian School. Chu Moli glanced at Diyu Dao with a faint smile. Also, this is a separate matter. I heard that Su Yiluan, the vice college chief, only came to the Starry School a few years ago. Even if he's really a demonic cultivator, I've looked through the school's history and found that the disappearance of students from the outer school has been happening for more than 10 years. Could it be that Su Yiluan has the ability to control everything in the Starry School from thousands of miles away? Chapter 1664. Furthermore, The ruthlessness and darkness in his heart were slowly ignited by the demonic flames. Bang! Su Iluin slapped Du Dao with his palm and sent him flying. He fell to the ground, but his eyes were not on Su Iluin, but the light behind him that was getting brighter and brighter. What are you waiting for? Du Dao roared. Su Iluin is a demonic cultivator. He's the one who captured innocent students to conduct inhumane experiments. Behind him is the demon gathering matrix. If he succeeds, the entire Starry School will be finished. Quick, kill him. Destroy the matrix behind him. Su Iluin sneered. Du Dao, you should know better than anyone what matrix is behind me. Du Dao panicked even more when he heard him. He shouted again. Have you forgotten that everyone has a responsibility to kill demonic cultivators? Hearing Du Dao's words and Su Iluin's real identity as a demonic cultivator, Xing Danqing and Meng Baichuan all attacked Su Iluin despite their doubts. Just as Du Dao said, killing demonic cultivators was the responsibility of all orthodox cultivators. With the addition of Xing Danqing and Meng Baichuan, two nascent soul cultivators, and the other school deans who were all at the peak of the Golden Core realm, Su Iluin was in a difficult situation. All of a sudden, Su Iluin found himself in a difficult situation and was no longer as relaxed as when he was dealing with Du Dao. Seeing that Su Iluin was being held up by Xing Danqing and Meng Baichuan, Du Dao's eyes flashed with malice. He quickly rushed towards the matrix on the cliff. Seeing the light on the matrix and the vague figure behind it, Du Dao's expression was complicated. A complicated look flashed across Du Dao's face. He suddenly raised his sword and slashed at the glyph array. Du Dao would rather destroy what belonged to him than let others have it. Seeing that the falling sword was about to destroy the matrix, a figure suddenly appeared and blocked in front of the matrix. Puff! Su Iluin spat out a mouthful of blood. His back was also slashed by Du Dao's sword, leaving a deep wound. Everyone was stunned by the scene, especially Meng Baichuan and Xing Danqing. Although Su Iluin was exhausted and battered by the dozen of them surrounding him, it was impossible for them to take him down in a short period of time. He was secretly shocked by the strength of the demonic cultivators. All of a sudden, Su Iluin seemed to have discovered something, and his expression changed greatly. It completely disregarded their attacks and turned around to devour the creatures behind it. He threw himself at the cliff. Xing Danqing's palm landed on Su Iluin's back. This palm strike contained 100% of his strength. It could be imagined how severe Su Iluin's injuries would be if he were to receive this palm strike. But that was not enough. He suffered such heavy injuries, yet he didn't even try to protect himself. Instead, he used all of his spiritual energy and demonic qi to cover the stone wall. Du Dao's sword had also forcefully struck him. Blood stained the man's clothes. His neatly combed long hair hung loosely, contrasting with his pale, blood-stained face. The demonic charm and mysteriousness that belonged to a demonic cultivator had disappeared, replaced by a clean, clear, delicate, and pitiful frailty. When Meng Baichuan saw this face, his mind suddenly flashed. Ilungsu. You are Ilungsu. Su Iluin slowly raised his head and met his eyes. A weak smile appeared on his lips. Meng Baichuan was even more incredulous. You. How did you become a demonic cultivator? How can you be worthy of Yao Guang's nurturing? Chapter 1665. Furthermore, the ruthlessness and darkness in his heart were slowly ignited by the demonic flames. Bang! Su Iluin slapped Du Dao with his palm and sent him flying. He fell to the ground, not looking at Su Iluin, but at the light behind him that was getting brighter and brighter. What are you waiting for? Du Dao roared. Su Iluin is a demonic cultivator. He's the one who captured innocent students for inhumane experiments. Behind him is the demon gathering matrix. If he succeeds, the entire Starry School will be finished. Quick, kill him. Destroy the matrix behind him. Su Iluin sneered. Du Dao, you should know better than anyone what matrix is behind me. Du Dao panicked even more after hearing his words. He shouted again. Have you forgotten that it's everyone's responsibility to kill a demonic cultivator? Hearing Diudeo's words and Su Iluan's real identity as a demonic cultivator, Xing Danqing and Meng Baichuan all attacked Su Iluan despite their doubts. Just like what Diudao said, killing a demonic cultivator was the responsibility of all orthodox cultivators. With the addition of Xing Danqing and Meng Baichuan, two nascent soul cultivators, and the other school chiefs who were all at the peak of the golden elixir realm, Su Iluan was in a difficult situation. All of a sudden, Su Iluan found himself in a difficult situation and was no longer as relaxed as when he was dealing with Diyu Dao. Seeing that Su Iluan was being held up by Xing Danqing and Meng Baichuan, a malicious light flashed in Diyu Dao's eyes. He quickly rushed towards the matrix on the cliff. Seeing the light on the matrix and the vague figure behind it, Diudeo's expression was complicated. A complicated look flashed across Diudeo's face. He suddenly raised his sword and slashed at the glyph array. He would rather destroy what belonged to him than let others have it. Seeing that the falling sword was about to destroy the matrix, a figure suddenly appeared and blocked in front of the matrix. Puff! A mouthful of blood spurted out of Su Iluan's mouth. His back had also been slashed by Diudeo's sword. Everyone was stunned by the scene, especially Meng Baichuan and Xing Danqing. Although Su Iluan was exhausted and battered by the dozen of them surrounding him, it was impossible for them to take him down in a short period of time. He was secretly shocked by the strength of the demonic cultivators. All of a sudden, Su Iluan seemed to have discovered something, and his expression changed dramatically. Completely ignoring their attacks, he turned around and pounced towards the cliff behind him. Xing Danqing's palm landed on Su Iluan's back. This palm strike contained 100% of his strength. It could be imagined how severe Su Iluan's injuries would be if he were to receive this palm strike. But that was not enough. He suffered such heavy injuries, yet he didn't even try to protect himself. Instead, he used all of his spiritual energy and demonic qi to cover the stone wall. Diudeo's sword had also forcefully struck him. Blood stained the man's clothes. His neatly combed long hair hung loosely, contrasting with his pale, blood-stained face. The demonic charm and mysteriousness that belonged to a demonic cultivator had disappeared, replaced by a clean, clear, delicate, and pitiful frailty. When Meng Baichuan saw this face, his mind suddenly flashed. Ilungsu. You are Ilungsu. Su Iluan slowly raised his head and met his eyes. A weak smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Meng Baichuan was even more incredulous. How did you become a demonic cultivator? Are you worthy of Yao Guang's nurturing back then? Chapter 1666. Su Iluan sneered. I should be the one asking you that. How can you face Yao Guang if you're with the culprit who harmed her? Meng Baichuan. What harmed Yao Guang? Didn't junior sister Yao Guang travel the world? Without waiting for Su Iluan to speak, Diyu Dao had already leapt into the air, and a powerful attack landed on Su Iluan. Meng Baichuan, are you stupid? How can you believe the words of a demonic cultivator? Su Iluan, I don't care who you are, but you're a demonic cultivator, and everyone has the right to kill you. Now that you're a nun in my starry school, I will not allow you to live. The boundless spirit energy attack, mixed with the powerful lightning energy, ruthlessly landed on Su Iluan's body. Su Iluan spat out another mouthful of blood and slowly knelt down. The demonic qi on his body had almost completely dissipated. Diudeo's sword took the opportunity to slash at the matrix behind him. However, in the next moment, Su Iluan, who should not have been able to get up, suddenly stood up and stood firmly in front of the matrix on the stone wall. Around his body, a pure black devil qi was released, forming a barrier. However, it was not protecting him, but the huge matrix on the stone wall. Diudeo's sword slashed at him again and again. Every slash left a bone-deep wound on his body. If not for his demonic qi's self-healing and defensive abilities, his limbs and head would have been chopped off by Diyu Dao. With every second that the demonic qi lingered, his face became paler and paler. His already thin body swayed as if he would collapse at any moment. However, even though he was covered in wounds, even though he was on the verge of death, he still stood firmly in front of the stone wall, not allowing Diudeo's sword to harm the matrix at all. Just a little more time, and the formation would be completed. Yaoguang, wait for me. Just a little bit more. Soon, I'll be done soon. At the side, Yun Ruhan and the others could not help but avert their eyes when they saw this. He's burning his demonic body, Chu Moli sighed. Once his demonic body burns out, he'll die. Do you really believe that the formation behind him is a demon gathering formation? It was not easy to set up the demon gathering formation, but if the person who set up the formation died, what use would it be, no matter how much demonic energy was gathered? All righteous cultivators were taught that devil cultivators were heinous and unforgivable. However, the people of the Xiaoyao sect had always been rebellious. They were free and unrestrained, but they didn't know the difference between good and evil. They only knew good and evil. In their eyes, Diyu Dao was definitely not a good person. Compared to Su Yilun, who was a devil cultivator, they felt that Diyu Dao was more deranged, a devil that was worse than beasts. Yun Ruhan sighed softly. I don't think it's a demon gathering array either, but they won't believe me, and they can't afford to take the risk. In the eyes of righteous Dao cultivators, the majority of devil cultivators were unreasonable, cruel, and tyrannical. What if this really was a demon gathering array? What if Su Yilun was really harming the Starry School students? No one could afford to pay the price of letting a fiendish cultivator go. Therefore, even if Meng Baichuan had doubts about Su Yilun's identity, even if the people of the Xiaoyao sect could not bear to see it, they could only watch. However, Xiao Bao suddenly frowned and said in a cold voice, "There's the sound of a Guqin." Guqin? Everyone was stunned. Is little junior sister back? It's not mother. Xiao Bao shook his head without hesitation. But it's as nice as mother's. Chapter 1667. He paused and said with some confusion, "That zither sound seems to be saying something, but little Bao doesn't understand." The people of the Xiaoyao school looked at each other. "Did you hear the zither music that Xiao Bao was talking about?" "No, I didn't hear it either." "Xiao Bao, did you hear it wrong?" Xiao Bao tilted his little head and frowned, but didn't say anything. He really did hear the sound of the zither, and it became more and more urgent, more and more panicked, as if he was in a hurry to tell something, to pray for something. However, Xiao Bao could not understand the meaning of the zither music, so he was helpless. It would be great if Nianqin was here. Mother must be able to understand what this zither music is saying. Su Yilun's body grew weaker and weaker. Even his figure became more and more blurry, as if he would collapse at any moment. However, the talisman formation behind him was firmly protected by him and was not damaged in the slightest. A trace of malevolence and impatience flashed across Diudeo's face, and he gave a look to his confidant behind him. Su Yilun was preparing to receive Diudeo's next wave of attacks. Suddenly, he felt two figures rushing towards him. Since the start of the battle, no one had dared to approach Su Yilun. This was because, to ordinary cultivators, the devilish aura on his body was like a scorching flame, or as cold as 10,000-year-old profound ice. If an ordinary cultivator were to come into contact with even a little bit of it, they would suffer unbearable pain and would need at least a year and a half to dissolve it. However, these two golden core cultivators didn't seem to be afraid of the demonic chi on his body at all, and directly threw him to the ground. Su Yilun's body was already riddled with holes and was extremely weak. He was only holding on by relying on demonic energy, let alone two golden core cultivators. Even a normal body-tempering cultivator would be able to send him flying with a single kick. He raised his head in horror and saw that the two golden core cultivators were smiling slyly at him. They weren't afraid of the devil chi at all? What kind of cultivator wouldn't be afraid of devil chi? Naturally, it could only be someone with the same devilish aura. However, at this moment, Su Yilun had no time to think about why Diyu Dao would have someone with demonic chi around him. He abruptly turned his head towards the direction of the stone wall. At this time, Diyu Dao had already raised the sword in his hand and slashed at the stone wall. With a rumbling sound, the rock wall, was smashed into pieces. After the dust settled, the light that was originally lit up was slowly extinguished. Su Iluin stared at this scene. He felt that the little bit of hope in his heart, the little bit of light, was about to be extinguished. Yao Guang? That heart-wrenching roar was like the cry of a cuckoo gazing at the emperor, and it was extremely painful. Two streams of bloody tears flowed down from Su Iluin's eyes. Ignoring his wounded and powerless body, he desperately crawled towards the shattered stone wall and the disappearing glyph formation. Yao Guang, Alcade, Alcade! Their cries were filled with grief and heartache. Even the onlookers were wary and suspicious of the demonic cultivators. When she saw this scene, she couldn't bear it and tears filled her eyes. Meng Baichuan and the other branch deans were even more shocked. Why is he summoning Yao Guang? Didn't junior sister Yao Guang go to roam the world? Di Yudao looked at the extinguished light on the stone wall and let out a long sigh of relief. Then he stared at the stone wall, as if looking through it to see something. His eyes were filled with resentment, unwillingness, and jealousy. Alcade, Alcade, you forced me to do all of this. Chapter 1668. I clearly love you so much. Why you have to choose someone else? If you had accepted me, you would be the headmaster's wife right now. Glory, splendor, wealth, power, and status. What wouldn't you have? Now that you've ended up in this state, it's all your own doing. Suddenly, Di Yudao abruptly turns to look at Su Iluin, his eyes bursting with intense hatred. It's this person. It's this man who took away Yao Guang's heart, turning himself into a laughingstock for everyone. Di Yudao originally thought that this person had died decades ago. He didn't expect that he would actually struggle on while at death's door and survive. Today, he will settle old and new enmity together. He must dismember his body into 10,000 pieces. Di Yudao suddenly raises the sword in his hand and ruthlessly slashes at Su Iluin's feet. At this time, the demonic energy around Su Iluin's body has already dispersed. With this slash, he will no longer be able to resist Di Yudao's attack. He will completely become a fish on the chopping block. However, at this time, a melodious sound of a zither suddenly resounds in the air. Almost at the same time, hundreds of zither sounds transform into swords, shooting straight towards Di Yudao. Di Yudao is caught off guard, and the sound blade actually cuts a hole in his clothes. He repeatedly retreats, barely dodging the attack. Who is it? Di Yudao shouts. In the end, who hurt me? Get out here. In the dark night, a clear and melodious female voice leisurely rings out. My apologies, Headmaster Zhai. My hand accidentally hurt you. I'm really sorry. Under the moonlight, a young girl dressed in blue slowly walks over, holding a black zither in her hand. Her jet-black hair gently sways with the night wind, from time to time covering half of her flawless white jade face, and from time to time revealing that unparalleled beauty. Everyone present can't help but stare blankly, their faces revealing amazement and infatuation. The young girl comes treading on the moonlight, beautiful and elegant, like the most beautiful fairy, and also like an ethereal banished immortal. With just a glance, it can even take away people's breath and souls. Nyangqi, a crisp, childish voice breaks the silence. The small figure rushes into Mine's embrace like a small cannonball, tightly hugging her thigh. On her raised little head, a pair of big, clear, sapphire-like eyes stared unblinkingly at Mayan. Her eyes were filled with longing and attachment. Although he had only been separated from his mother for a few hours, he still missed her very much. Mu Yin strokes Xiao Bao's head, then crouches down to kiss her son's soft little face. Did my baby miss Nyangqin? Xiao Bao blushed and buried his head in her arms. Yes, he said in a low voice. Xiao Bao missed his mother so much. Xiao Bao didn't want to leave his mother for even a moment. Jun Mai, Di Yudao suddenly bellows. What are you doing? Do you want to disobey your master and protect a demonic cultivator? Mu Yin releases Xiao Bao and signals him to return to Yun Ruhan's side. Unfortunately, Xiaobao was unwilling to leave his mother. He grabbed her sleeve and refused to let go, vowing to be a little tail. Muyin smiled and rubbed her son's head. She let him be and slowly walked to Su Yiluan's side and sat down cross-legged. I was entrusted by someone to save someone. Muyin looked at Su Yiluan, who was riddled with scars. She suddenly raised her hand and took out a talisman, pressing it on his body. This talisman is called Elemental Talisman. As the name suggests, it can gather the vitality needed by living beings. What cultivators need is spiritual energy. What demonic cultivators need is devil energy. Chapter 1669. There's also that demonic thing that's neither human nor ghost. It needs demonic energy. In short, the Elemental Gathering Talisman can gather all kinds of elemental energy between heaven and earth and turn it into living beings' use. As the Elemental Gathering Talisman burns on Su Yiluan's body, his body that was on the verge of collapse slowly solidifies. Even the several fatal wounds on his body gradually begin to heal. But it's only a moment before the Elemental Gathering Talisman burns out. Su Yiluan's injuries have only recovered by less than 10%, barely enough to preserve his life. Muyin can't help but shake her head. This Elemental Gathering Talisman is really not easy to draw. It's not easy to draw one, but it can only display this little effect. However, everyone at the scene was stunned. What kind of talisman is this? It can actually gather elemental energy? Logically speaking, cultivators only have spiritual power. How can they draw talismans that can gather demonic energy? Diyu Dao suddenly comes to his senses and angrily shouts, Jun Muyin, you're also a demonic cultivator. Could it be that you're Su Yiluan's accomplice? As soon as these words come out, the people of the Xiao Yao school who were watching with folded arms can't take it anymore. Old fart. Who are you saying is a demonic cultivator's accomplice? Lung Yuma holds her long saber horizontally and stands beside Muyin. She bluntly curses. First, clearly tell us how many innocent lives have been harmed in the secret room under your study. Luo Yu, I think that some people, even if they don't look like demonic cultivators, are actually much more ruthless than real demonic cultivators. Diyu Dao angrily points at Su Yiluan, who was saved by Muyin. If she isn't a demonic cultivator, how could she gather demonic energy for Su Yiluan? Chu Moli unhurriedly says, Then why don't Dean Jai tell us first? Why aren't your two trusted subordinates afraid of demonic energy? I've heard that only people who possess devilish qi are able to resist devilish qi. Chu Moli's words make everyone's gazes uniformly look at Diyu Dao's two trusted subordinates. Everyone's eyes reveal a suspicious light. Meng Baichuan and Xing Danqing are two nascent soul cultivators. They have the ability to resist demonic energy. But how can two trifling third-rank gold core cultivators have the ability to resist Su Yiluan's demonic energy without suffering a backlash? The two golden core cultivators panicked and looked at Diyu Dao for help. Diyu Dao's heart thumps, and he roars loudly. Don't try to change the subject. You're shielding that witch Jun Mayan. Bah! Luo Yu spat. Diyu Dao, you're so shameless. You don't need to explain when your own people have problems, and you still have the cheek to say that we are changing the topic? Do you really think everyone here is an idiot? Chu Moli also said unhurriedly. As for why my little junior sister is able to gather demonic energy, that's because my little junior sister's true identity is the Azure Cloud's sex master, Yi Liangchen. Since ancient times, have you ever seen a talisman master become the champion of the flourishing Heavenly Light Finals? Since my junior sister has such a title, she naturally has some extraordinary means. What's so strange about that? Meng Baichuan and the others sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard that Mu Yan's true identity was the Lord of Clear Sky, Yi Liangchen, although he already had his suspicions. However, when he heard Chu Moli reveal his identity, he was still shocked and excited. When he saw the Azure Cloud Command Medallion that Mu Yan took out, he had no doubts at all. Diyu Dao still wanted to say something, but he was interrupted by Xing Danqing mockingly. Dean Jai, have you gone senile? Don't you know that as long as a devil cultivator or someone related to a devil cultivator enters the soaring sky, Ling Long, and Nirvana pagodas, they would be directly killed by the artifact spirits of the pagodas. Chapter 1670. For June Mayan to be able to become the Lord of Clear Sky, that means that her identity is absolutely not suspicious. Deo's complexion alternates between green and white. He looks at Mu Yin with a gaze that wishes to tear her body into 10,000 pieces. It was that woman again. It was her again. Why did this slut have to ruin his plans every single time? June Mayan, since you have nothing to do with this devil cultivator Su Yilun, why don't you get out of the way and let me kill him? Mu Yin, however, shakes her head. That won't do. I was entrusted by someone to save Vice Dean Su's life. Meng Baichuan asked curiously, who did it? Mine's fingers are placed on the Tian Mo Chin, gently moving. However, the music she played was very strange. It had no beginning or end, and it did not seem like she was playing a complete piece of music. Instead, it seemed like she was playing with someone else, so it was intermittent. Diyu Dao was furious. If you don't say it, it means that you are making excuses. However, the next moment, the girl's pleasant voice, accompanied by the melodious music, interrupted him. The person who asked me to save him is the dean of the Alcade branch, Ning Yaoguang. As soon as these words came out, the scene instantly quietened down. Diyu Dao's angry face suddenly froze. His expression seemed to be forcibly distorted before it froze on his face. Su Yiluan's eyes were filled with despair, hatred, and darkness. After hearing these words, he abruptly raises his head and looks at Mayan in disbelief. What did you just say? Even Meng Baichuan and the deans couldn't help but exclaim, Junior Sister Yaoguang? Did Junior Sister Yaoguang really entrust this to you? Where was she? You really saw her? Mu Yin pursed her lips, revealing a faint smile, but didn't say anything. Meng Baichuan glanced at Su Yiluan and suddenly sighed. Junior Sister Yaoguang doted on this student the most back then. Now that he has fallen into the demonic path, it's possible that she wants to save him. Maybe there's a reason why he turned into a demon. Why don't we keep him alive and listen to what he has to say? After all, he's someone Junior Sister Yaoguang wants to save. Impossible! Diyu Dao suddenly let out a hysterical roar. How could Ning Yaoguang entrust you? It's impossible for her to entrust you. She was clearly... Diyu Dao's voice suddenly stopped, and his face was filled with terror. Obviously by what? Mu Yin said with a beaming smile. It was clearly sealed by you behind this cliff, and it was impossible for me to encounter it outside, and it was impossible for me to entrust it to you, right? Diyu Dao suddenly widened his eyes, looking at her as if he had seen a ghost. How did you know? Almost slipped out of his mouth. Meng Baichuan, what? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by being sealed behind this cliff? Mu Yin sneered. Otherwise, why do you think Vice Principal Su would risk his life to protect this talisman array? That was because this talisman formation was not a demon-gathering formation, but a reincarnation formation used to break the seal and allow Ning Yaoguang to see the light of day again and regain her freedom. Unfortunately, the reincarnation formation was destroyed by you at the most crucial moment. No, this is impossible. Meng Baichuan shook his head repeatedly. Yaoguang is our junior sister. Senior brother Zhai doted on her the most back then. How? How is this possible? Mu Yin, people's hearts are fickle. Jealousy and greed can make people change beyond recognition. Dean Ming, look at senior brother Zhai beside you. Does he still have the strength of character and appearance from back then? Chapter 1671. Meng Baichuan looks at Diyu Dao in a daze, only to see that his brows are sharp and his eyes are filled with coldness and tyranny, as well as a trace of imperceptible panic. His heart thumps, and his eyes slowly widen. Diyu Dao shouts angrily, June Mayan, don't try to mislead people with your lies. What reincarnation array? It's just your one-sided words. Su Yiluan is now a cruel and tyrannical devil cultivator. And you actually said that he arranged a reincarnation array and not a giant demon array. Haha. Do you really think that everyone here will be bewitched by your absurd words? Whether it's absurd or not, wouldn't it be clear if we witness it with our own eyes? Mayan smiles, takes out an array disc, and throws it at the broken mountain wall. As soon as the array disc touches the mountain wall, it immediately attaches to it. A dazzling light suddenly spreads out in all directions with the array disc as the center. In the blink of an eye, the falling rubble seems to be attracted by something, and one after another, they fly up and reform the mountain wall. And the light of the array, which was originally extinguished, shines once again. This is Reverse Cultivation Ancient. This is the Reverse Cultivation Ancient Array Disc. Only one in the entire Shiojin continent can repair all talisman arrays below rank 9. I heard that this Reverse Cultivation Ancient Array Disc has always been in young Master Yun Zhao's hands. How could Jun Mayan have it? The people of the Xiaoyao sect are also shocked when they see the array disc that Mayan threw out. They didn't expect that little martial uncle would give such a precious, Reverse Cultivation Ancient Array Disc to junior sister. Little martial uncle really dotes on junior sister, the only successor of the Way of the Sword. Only Chu Moli secretly chuckles, secretly despising his fellow apprentices and sisters, this group of ignorant mortals. Little martial uncle's kindness to little martial sister was not something that could be summed up by the words master to disciple and successor. Su Yiluan suddenly turns his head to look at the reincarnation array that is lit up again, and tears instantly fill his eyes. Yao Wang. He looks at Mayan and says in a trembling voice, Who are you? Why are you helping me? Mayan, I said, I was entrusted by someone. How? How is this possible? Yao Wang wouldn't entrust you. Su Yiluan glares at Mayan. Before Mu Yin could answer, Xiao Bao said coldly, Can't you hear the sound of the zither? What's that sound? Xiao Bao pulled a long face, his expression one of disdain. He's been playing for so long, and he's even echoing with Mother. Can't you guys hear him? Mu Yin glanced at the dodging behind her and slowly said, As early as when I first entered the Yaowang branch, I often heard intermittent zither sounds, but I couldn't find out who was playing the zither. Thus, I also played the zither in response. Slowly, we became close friends through the sound of the zither. Although I can't completely understand what she wants to express, I can feel her resentment, pain, and despair. However, amidst such despair and resentment, he still maintained a trace of carefreeness and arrogance, as well as a pure heart that could not be destroyed no matter what. It is precisely this kind of magnanimous and free zither music that makes Mayan unconsciously regard this person as a confidant. She wants to understand more about her and help her. Especially after the end of the Tri-Academy tournament, he felt Di Yudeo's fear of the Alcade Institution's secret. Thus, Mayan secretly investigated some information and then found out. It turns out that a few decades ago, Di Yudao, Meng Baichuan, and Ning Yaowang entered the Starry School together. Chapter 1672. At that time, the Alcade branch was the weakest branch in the entire Starry School. Of course, the number of people in the Alcade branch was not as terrifying as it was now. There were only 7, but there were less than 100 people, and more than 90% of them were support musicians without any combat ability. Ning Yaoguang, Di Yudao, and Meng Baichuan came from the same sect. But only Ning Yaoguang insisted on entering the Alcade branch, which mainly consisted of musicians. Di Yudao and Meng Baichuan loved this little junior sister very much. Seeing that she had to waste her time in the trashiest Alcade branch, they were heartbroken. Almost everyone thought that Ning Yaoguang, the new star who had performed well in the entrance examination, would gradually lose all her brilliance in the dilapidated Alcade branch. However, the Tri-Academy tournament held the following year made everyone's jaws drop. In that tournament, the Alcade branch could only choose 10 people to participate. 2 of them had no combat ability at all. Usually they just showed up on the stage and left in a hurry. However, with the help of Ning Yaoguang's almost nature-defying erosion, this team of 8 advanced triumphantly. At that time, Ning Yawang was like Jun Mayan. She could both support and fight. In the semifinals and finals, they did not crush their opponents like the Xiaoyao school, but they still managed to win by working together. Back then, the name of Polaris Zithermaster, Ning Yawang was known by everyone in the three academies. The current chiefs of the three schools, Li Wenyuan, Xing Danqing, and Diyu Dao, were all defeated by Ning Yawang in the tri-school tournament. After that, Ning Yawang, Diyu Dao, and Meng Baichuan all graduated from the Starry School and returned to their sects, traveling everywhere. A few years later, they became teachers in the Starry School. Because Diyu Dao was appreciated by the college chief at that time, he was quickly promoted to vice college chief. He promoted Ning Yaoguang and Meng Baichuan to Alcade branch and Tianshu branch respectively. Everything seemed to be harmonious, and the Starry School became stronger and stronger, especially the Alcade branch. Under Ning Yaoguang's management, more and more powerful musicians appeared. However, a few years later, Ning Yaoguang suddenly disappeared one day. She only left a letter saying that she was going on a long journey. No one knew why she had left or where she had gone, but from then on, no one had seen any trace of her. Combining the emotion she felt from the sound of the zither, the information she had found, Su Iluan's narration, and Diyu Dao's reaction, Mu Yin could guess what had happened back then. Su Iluan stared at her blankly. Why, you can really hear Yaoguang's music? How is she now? Is she doing well? Just as Mu Yin was about to answer, a flying boat suddenly sped down from the front. Suddenly, dozens of golden core cultivators jumped down from the flying ship. They surround Mu Yin and Su Iluan. Seeing the attire of these golden core stage cultivators, Meng Baichuan's expression changed. You're the subordinates of the Tian clan? How did you get into Starry School? The Tian family was also a great aristocratic family in the Azure Blue world. Its strength was second only to the Nalan family, the Lu family, and the Murong family. It was even slightly more prominent than the Duan family and the Feng family. However, even if it was the Tian clan, they should not have been able to send people into the Starry School so easily. Chapter 1673. One must know that there was a barrier around the three academies. Without an identity token, one could not enter. Diyu Dao said coldly, I asked them to come. The leader of the Tian family was a tall man with a long face. His eyes were like a hawk's, but they were not sharp but wretched and cunning. Exterminating demons and protecting the Dao is the duty of every cultivator. My Tian family has always been on good terms with Starry School. It is our duty to kill the demonic cultivators. After speaking, he turned to Mu Yin and Su Iluan. When he saw Mu Yan's face, he gasped. His eyes were filled with obsession and greed. But soon he calmed down. Chief Zhai, the demonic cultivators you mentioned are these two? That's right. Diyu Dao's gaze swept across Mu Yin and Su Iluan. Su Iluan is a demonic cultivator. Jun Mu Yin and the rest of the Alcade branch colluded with demonic cultivators and wanted to do evil. They deserve to die. The horse-faced cultivator immediately said, Haha, don't worry, Chief Zhai. We will bring them back to the Tian family immediately to interrogate them. We will make them confess all the plans of the demonic cultivators. After speaking, he waved his hand, and the group immediately attacked Mu Yin. Meng Baichuan said angrily, Diyu Dao, what are you doing? What am I doing? Killing the demons, of course. The horse-faced cultivator laughed coldly. Chief Xing, Chief Meng, are you trying to protect the demonic cultivators? Xing Danqing and Meng Baichuan, who wanted to stop them, were immediately stopped. Diyu Dao said to the horse-faced cultivator, Friend Tian, don't underestimate these people, especially Jun Mu Yin. She is the leader of the Green Cloud sect, Yilianshan. The rest of the Alcade branch are not simple either. Why don't you and I? Before he could finish speaking, the horse-faced cultivator had already waved his hand carelessly and said in disdain, Just a group of little bastards in the stage of fasting. Do you think they can turn the sky upside down under my hands? The horse-faced cultivator was already in the 9th level of the Golden Core. He was only slightly weaker than the Starry School's branch deans. Most of the teachers were not his match. His subordinates were all Jindan Shioja. More than 10 Jindan stage experts against 7 young men and women in the Anidia stage, plus a dying fiendish cultivator. No matter how one looked at it, it was a crushing defeat. The horse-faced cultivator laughed and said, "Dean Jai, just watch from the side. If we can't take down these little bastards in the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, I'll cut off my head and let them use it as a chamber pot." Ha ha ha. That's right. They're just a bunch of fasting stage trash. We only need to use 50% of our power to make them cry for their parents. If we lose, we won't be able to make a living anymore. However, half an hour later, the ground was littered with groaning, muscular men, each of them moaning and howling in pain. Lung Yuma stepped on the horse-faced cultivator's head with one foot and revealed a carefree smile. "You just said that if you can't take us down in the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, you'll take off your head and let us use it as a chamber pot." The horse-faced cultivator's eyes were filled with shock. He stared at Mu Yin and the little boy beside her, unable to believe what had happened in the past half an hour. He was a 9th-level Golden Core cultivator. He had rushed towards Jun Mu Yin immediately, thinking that he could take her down easily. He was even thinking about how he would humiliate such a beauty in the name of interrogating her before handing her over to his master. Chapter 1674. But he didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, the spiritual power within his body would be disturbed by the zither music, and his movements would become sluggish. Then, without waiting for him to react, he was ruthlessly beaten up by the 5-year-old child next to Junmayan. And then everything was like a runaway wild horse, going in a completely unimaginable direction. The horse-faced cultivator was beaten black and blue, unable to get up, and his subordinates were lying around him in disorder. He still didn't understand how things turned out like this. Weren't they Jindan stage cultivators? Weren't their opponents a group of fasting stage boys and girls? Why? Why did they fail? And why did they lose so miserably? Even Ming Baichuan and Xing Danqing are stunned. God, what a terrible group of students are they. Even the Yaoguang branch that Ning Yaoguang led back then couldn't be this powerful. 7 fasting stage cultivators were able to firmly suppress more than 10 Jindan stage cultivators. Especially the domains that Yun Ruhan and Lung Yuma displayed. They were several times more tyrannical than when they faced the fantasy team in the 3 Academies tournament. In the 3 Academies tournament, the people of the Xiao Yao team simply didn't display their full strength. What's even more shocking is not the people of the Xiao Yao school, but the little boy next to Junmayan, a 5-year-old child facing the horse-faced cultivator, a 9th stage Jindan stage expert. He actually rubbed him against the ground the whole time. Even with the help of Junmayan's zither music, this is still too outrageous. And the sword in his hand makes Di Dao even more shocked and aghast. Did he see it wrong? Why does this sword look so much like the Bixia sword that Master asked him to guard? No. This is absolutely impossible. How could the Bixia sword that even such a powerful master couldn't tame appear in the hands of a 5-year-old child? He must have seen it wrong. Yes, he must have seen it wrong. Di Dao awoke from his shock, and his eyes once again focus on the mountain wall. Reincarnation array to devour it would take about half an hour to complete. Just now, Su Iluan was about to complete the array, so he had to recalculate the half an hour. But now, the completion of the reincarnation array is getting closer and closer. If he really let Ning Yaoguang come out, everything would be over. Di Dao's pupils suddenly contracted. He suddenly leaped up and fiercely slashed at the ancient cultivation array on the mountain wall. As long as the ancient cultivation array was broken, the array would naturally collapse again. What Di Dao wants is to catch everyone off guard while their attention is focused on Junmayan and the horse-faced cultivator. However, he did not know that there was a person in the crowd whose attention had never left the reincarnation formation. Almost at the same time as Di Dao of Di Dao, action, Su of Su of the reverse ancient cultivation disc and the reincarnation formation behind him were still in good condition. He had protected them with his life. Just as his voice falls, An attack that carries 100% of his cultivation fiercely falls towards the top of Su Yiluan's head. Mine abruptly turns around, wanting to save him, but it's already too late. Chapter 16, 75. Almost at the same time, the rune on the rune suddenly shone brightly. The already dazzling lights suddenly became as bright as fireworks. Rumble! The huge mountain wall collapsed, and dust flew everywhere. The surging sound of the zither poured out from the collapsed mountain wall. There were raging waves and raging flames of anger, but there was also a trace of pain and gentleness. Bang! A powerful force collided with Diudeo's attack in the air. The airwaves rolled, and the earth shook. Diudeo's whole body seemed to be slapped by a huge palm. He landed heavily on the ground and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Su Yiluan only felt that his body and soul were collapsing in waves of tearing pain. But all of a sudden, a familiar hand gently supported him and pulled his battered body into an embrace. He opened his eyes absent-mindedly, and a picturesque face reflected in the bottom of his eyes. His weak heart, that almost couldn't beat, violently trembled. Tears unconsciously blurred his eyes. He murmured with a hoarse voice, "Yao Guang. Yao Guang, is that you?" "It's me." A low sigh sounded in his ears, with blame, with a sigh, and dense heartache. "Ah, Su, didn't I tell you to let go of the stubbornness in your heart? But after so many years, why are you still so stupid?" Su Yiluan heard the familiar voice, the familiar blame, but his face showed a dazed smile. After so many years, the only light and warmth left in his heart was that stubbornness and that figure. If he abandoned it, what would be left in his life? But fortunately, his stubbornness was correct. He finally saved Yao from being devoured. Light! He finally fulfilled his original vow. The gentle night wind blew over his body that was covered with cuts and bruises. The pain had made him lose all other senses. But inexplicably, he felt so happy and peaceful, as if a dusty memory in the bottom of his heart was suddenly opened by someone and placed in front of him, so precious and precious. 18 years ago. You were the first in this year's assessment, Ilungsu? Why did you choose to come to Yaoguang branch? Ilungsu turned his head and met the woman's eyes, which were as bright as the stars in the summer night. The unkind words that were about to come out of his mouth somehow became, "No, it's none of your business." Ning Yaoguang laughed. "I'm the dean of the Alcade branch, and you're a student of the Alcade branch. How can I not care about you? By the way, what instrument are you best at? Blow flute? Playing the piano? Pipa?" Ilungsu was dumbfounded. What instrument was that? He was a sword cultivator, so why would he learn that damn instrument? Huh? You don't know anything? How can we do that? Everyone in the Alcade branch must know a musical instrument. Even if you're not a musician, you must learn it. Ilungsu rejected without even thinking. He had come to the Starry School to cultivate and improve his abilities. He wanted to become the #1 swordsman in the Azure Blue world. Who would want to learn musical instruments? However, Ning Yaoguang didn't give him a chance to refuse. "I think you should just learn the zither. No one in our academy studies the zither. It wasn't easy for me to find an ancient music score that required a zither and a zither to play together. But I didn't even have anyone who could play with me. All right, it's decided. I'll teach you." The woman's hand was so soft and white. She held his bronze-colored hand lightly and taught him how to play. A delicate fragrance wafted into his nose, like a feather, gently tugging at his heartstrings. Ilungsu blushed. Chapter 1676. From then on, Ilungsu's gaze fell more and more on this dean, who did not seem like a dean at all. Ning Yaoguang's looks were elegant, but her personality was that of a man, magnanimous and straightforward. Almost all the students in the Alcade branch, regardless of gender, were friends with her. Some students did not even call her teacher or dean, but called her Sister Ning. For some reason, Ilungsu always called her by her name. Ning Yaoguang corrected him a few times. "I'm your teacher. Shouldn't you at least call me sister or dean?" However, Ilungsu did not care and always called her Yaguang. When he was only 25 years old, he had already broken through the golden core stage. Ning Yaguang was already at the nascent soul stage at that time, and her cultivation was much higher than Ilungsu's. However, she was more interested in training her musician skills, so whenever she went out, Ilungsu would follow her to protect her. Ning Yaguang was amused. I'm a nascent soul cultivator, the dean of the Alcade branch, and I need a kid to protect me? Then wouldn't I be regressing? When Ilungsu heard this, he did not know why, but he felt an indescribable rage and coldly said, I'm not a kid. He slapped away Ning Yaoguang's hand that was touching his head. In the end, Ning Yaoguang could not dissuade him and allowed him to go with her. In the forest, the two of them really met with danger. It was a secret region left behind by a devil cultivator. That devil cultivator was an evil cultivator like the All-Pleasure sect, except that the All-Pleasure sect was made up of females, and they specialized in seducing males to become cultivation vessels. This devil cultivator was a male, and he specialized in seducing females with pure Yin physiques to throw themselves at him, so that he could absorb their Yin energy for his own use. Ning Yaoguang accidentally entered the formation and lost consciousness, and was almost caught by the demonic cultivator. It was Ilungsu who risked his life to save her, and carried her through the devil's swamp, escaping the pursuit of the demonic cultivator. The two of them were trapped in a cave in the devil's swamp. Ilungsu's spiritual energy was almost depleted, while Ning Yaoguang's body was burning because of the strange formation. She hugged Ilungsu and kissed his lips. Ilungsu already had deep feelings for Ning Yaoguang. How could he endure the woman he loved throwing herself into his arms? Thus, it was a night of tumultuous love. When Ning Yaoguang woke up, she felt remorseful and blamed herself. When Ilungsu confessed to her, she rejected him without hesitation. Ning Yaoguang said, You're my student, which means you're my disciple. It's against the norm for us to be together. This time it was my fault, but since it was my fault, I must correct it. Ilungsu, Ning Yaoguang, have you forgotten? I've never called you a mentor, nor have I ever called you a dean. What kind of master and disciple are we? In my heart, you're only Ning Yaoguang, the woman I love. I know I'm not strong enough now, and I'm not worthy of you, but one day, I will become a man worthy of you. I will stand shoulder to shoulder with you and protect you. Ning Yaoguang was shocked by Ilungsu's words. She returned to the Alcade branch dejectedly, and found that Ilungsu had not returned. She had rejected him, but from then on, her mind was filled with Ilungsu's figure. Chapter 1677. A man who hated playing the zither, but was willing to learn patiently for her. When training in the forest, he would always stay by her side, hunting beasts for her and cooking delicious food for her. No matter how she corrected him, he would always call her Yaoguang. And under the moon, when he played the zither with her, the gentleness in his eyes seemed to melt water. Ning Yaoguang finally had to admit that she was moved by Ilungsu. Just then, Diyu Dao was officially promoted from Starry School's deputy college chief to the college chief. He confessed to Ning Yaoguang. Diyu Dao poured out his feelings for Yaoguang for so many years, and that fiery love devoured him. He said, Junior sister Yaoguang, I am not as strong as you. In the past, I was afraid that I was not good enough for you. But now, I am finally the college chief of Starry School. From now on, I can give you the best life. You will be respected and envied by others. Yaoguang, will you marry me? Ning Yaoguang rejected him without hesitation. Diyu Dao had always been proud, but also had a deep sense of inferiority. So this time, he had confessed to Yaoguang because he was confident. He did not expect Yaoguang to reject him. Diyu Dao was ashamed and angry, but he did not show it on his face. He just left sadly, making Ning Yaoguang feel very guilty towards this honest big brother. But she had only treated Diyu Dao as a brother. Moreover, she already had Ilungsu in her heart. She had already made up her mind to resign from her position as the college chief of Alcade branch to find Ilungsu and tell him about her feelings. However, just as Yaoguang was about to leave Alcade branch, she suddenly realized that the number of students in Alcade Branch decreased one after another. At first, it was only the outer yard. Later, even a few students from the inner yard disappeared. Moreover, this did not only happen in Alcade Branch. Students from other branches also disappeared. But these missing students were mostly lone cultivators with no power or background. Most of them did not have good friends in the school, so their disappearances did not cause much of a commotion. Most people thought that they had gone out to train or felt that cultivating in Starry School was too hard, so they did not want to return. Such a situation had happened before in the Starry School. However, Ning Yaoguang felt that something was wrong. She had always been on good terms with the students of the branch courtyard, regardless of whether they were from the outer courtyard or the inner courtyard. That was why many of the solitary students didn't interact with other classmates, but treated her as the only person they could trust. As for those missing students, they had clearly said that they wanted to learn the skills of musicians from her. How could they have disappeared for no reason? Therefore, Ning Yaoguang went to look for Diyu Dao, hoping that he would investigate the disappearance of the students. Diyu Dao had always granted his junior sister's request, so he immediately said that he would ask the student council to conduct a thorough investigation. However, the final result was still disappointing. Diyu Dao hugged the depressed Ning Yaoguang and comforted her gently. "Junior sister, don't be sad. Maybe these people really went out to train?" As he spoke, he hugged Ning Yaoguang even tighter and kissed her involuntarily. "Yaoguang, seeing you so sad, seeing your brother's heart hurts. Let me take care of you from now on? Okay." Ning Yaoguang suddenly came to her senses and pushed him away. She refused again without hesitation. "Senior brother, I'm sorry. I already have someone I like." Chapter 1678. She had fled in a hurry, and she did not see Diyu Dao's twisted expression. Diyu Dao quickly sent people to investigate the people around Ning Yaoguang, and quickly found out about Ilungsu. Diyu Dao hated Ilungsu to the core, and was driven mad with jealousy. Especially when he found out that Ilungsu and Ning Yaoguang had been intimate, he felt that Ning Yaoguang had betrayed him, and his hatred for Ning Yaoguang grew. Diyu Dao pretended to tell Ning Yaoguang that there was news of the missing students. However, he had secretly drugged Yaoguang's tea, wanting to defile her. Who knew that after Yaoguang had been through the formation of the devil cultivators, her body had changed, and she was resistant to such drugs. At that critical moment, Ning Yaoguang woke up. She looked at the senior brother she had respected since young, and saw him in such a hideous state, she could not believe it. Diyu replied, "Ning Yaoguang, you brought this upon yourself. It was you who betrayed me first, you slut. I've been so good to you. Even when I was looking for students to experiment on, I would look for students from other faculties, not Alcade. Yet, you had an affair with that lowly student of yours? How am I not good enough? Why would you choose that trash and not be the dean's wife?" Ning Yaoguang's eyes widened in shock. "You were the one who captured the students? What did you do to them?" Diyu Dao laughed out loud and brought Ning Yaoguang to the underground laboratory to show her the students who had turned into monsters. He spoke, "Yaoguang, I'm currently helping a noble person. As long as I succeed, I can go to the Purple Cloud world and become a respected person. As long as you follow me, I can guarantee that your future." Before he could finish, Ning Yaoguang spat viciously on his face. "Diyu Dao, you devil, bastard. You disgust me. You want me to be with you? I'll die." Diyu Dao flew into a rage and locked Ning Yaoguang up. He even forged Yaoguang's notes and left behind a letter, making Meng Baichuan and the others think that Yaoguang had resigned from her position as dean and left. Just like that, Ning Yaoguang was locked up for 3 months, and Diyu Dao would come every day to ask if she had changed her mind, only to be chased away. Diyu Dao became more and more irritable, and his hatred towards Ilungsu grew deeper and deeper. In the end, number 7 Ilungsu came to find him when he heard that Ning Yaoguang had left. How could Diyu Dao allow Ilungsu to live with the old and the new enmity? He fed the bee-soul pellet to Ilungsu right in front of Ning Yaoguang, causing Ning Yaoguang to watch as Ilungsu turned into a monster and threw him into the Fushi Secret Realm's demon cave to become food for the blood abyss vines. Ning Yaoguang was so enraged that she actually broke through her cultivation and broke free from the immortal binding rope, almost killing Diyu Dao. Tears streamed down Diyu Dao's face as he recounted how he had been led astray, how they were siblings, and how his father had raised Ning Yaoguang. Ning Yaoguang wavered. Before this, she had always treated Diyu Dao as her own brother. Diyu Dao's father, her master, was someone Ning Yaoguang respected like a father. Ning Yaoguang didn't dare to imagine how sad her master would be if she killed her master's only son. In the end, her heart softened. She only tied Diyu Dao up and planned to hold a starry school devouring ceremony. She would punish him for his crimes. However, Ning Yaoguang didn't expect that Diyu Dao had raised a group of demonic soldiers. Chapter 1679. These demonic soldiers not only let Diyu Dao go, but also broke into the Alcade branch and captured all the students as hostages, forcing Ning Yaoguang to give in. Ning Yaoguang was strong, but how could she ignore the lives of her students? She had to give in, but the students of the Alcade branch were not cowards. After seeing Diyu Dao's true face, they fought back crazily. Disregarding their own lives, they had to save Ning Yaoguang. Diyu Dao's eyes were bloodshot. Regardless of whether the students resisted or not, they were all killed by him. That night, the Alcade branch was filled with blood, and corpses were everywhere. Ning Yaoguang's heart was also completely dead that night. After Diyu Dao woke up, he realized what he had done. The corpses of the students of the Alcade branch must not be found, otherwise it would definitely cause a huge uproar. So he used the all-venom formation to seal all the corpses of the students behind the rocks. Devour in the all-venom formation, the corpses of the students would not rot, but their souls would never be able to reincarnate. Diyu Dao wanted to force Ning Yaoguang to sign a master-servant contract with him, but Ning Yaoguang directly jumped into the all-venom formation. Her lover's soul had already died. Her students were all dead because of her. She, Ning Yaoguang, did not have the face to continue living in this world. She would rather use her living body and soul to be sealed in the all-venom formation, to be a lonely dead spirit every night, than to live as a slave for Diyu Dao. When Ning Yaoguang was imprisoned, Diyu Dao forged a letter from her, saying that she had left to travel far away. Although Meng Baichuan and the others were worried, they felt that their junior sister had always been lively and liked adventure, so they did not take it to heart. But Ning Yaoguang did not come back. And after that night, the students of the Alcade branch were all slaughtered. Diyu Dao created the illusion that the Alcade branch was attacked by the demonic cultivators, and all the students died, turning the Alcade branch into a place that everyone knew. From then on, the Alcade branch became a forbidden place that no one stepped into, until the Xiao Yao 7 came. After listening to Ning Yaoguang's recount, Meng Baichuan couldn't believe his ears. Who could have imagined that the normally gentle, calm, upright, and kind-hearted director was actually so filthy and disgusting? From the moment Ning Yaoguang appeared, Diyu Dao had been staring fixedly at her, his gaze seemingly infatuated. After so many years, Ning Yaoguang's appearance had hardly changed because she had been sealed in the All Formation. She was like the most brilliant flower, gorgeous and proud, blooming under the bright and beautiful sun. Radiant Jade, Diyu Dao said hoarsely, Yaoguang, all these years, I seem to have missed you. Why didn't you accept me back then? Do you know that in all these years, I have never fallen in love with another person? My love for you is deeper than anyone else in this world. Ning Yaoguang's eyes were filled with disgust. Your so-called love is to rob and kill my lover, my student. Your so-called love is to lock me up in this formation for 18 years? Diyu Dao, there is nothing more disgusting than you in this world. Meng Baichuan and the others suddenly came to their senses and stared fiercely at Diyu Dao. You crazy beast, you don't even spare your own student. Even our junior sister. Chapter 1680. Today, I will enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and seek justice for those innocent students who died. Xing Danqing also laughed coldly. You said that you would get rid of demons, but it turns out that you are the real demon. Diyu Dao, now that things have come to this, you have nothing to say. What else do you have to say? Diyu Dao's bloodshot eyes glared at the people in front of him. Suddenly, he howled madly into the sky. Good, good, since you all called me a beast and said that I am a demon. Today, I will let all of you die in the hands of a demonic cultivator. As soon as he finished speaking, flying boats suddenly descended from the sky. Dozens of black-clothed men rushed out from each flying boat. These black-clothed men were only in the Golden Core realm, but their expressions were twisted and their eyes were bloodshot. They did not have any consciousness. Their bodies also emitted a thick demonic aura. Seeing this, the expressions of Meng Baichuan and the rest changed. This was actually a team of 100 demonic cultivators. Just as Ning Yaoguang had said, Diyu Dao had secretly raised a group of demonic soldiers. Of course, Xing Danqing and the rest of the nascent soul cultivators would not care about these demonic soldiers if they were just a few. But with so many demonic soldiers gathered together, they would form a majestic demonic aura. Even if Xing Danqing and the rest came into contact with such a thick demonic aura, they would not feel good. Diyu Dao looked at them being forced into a panic by the demon soldiers, and the smile on his face became even more arrogant. 18 years ago, I was able to slaughter everyone in the Alcade branch. Tonight, I will kill all of you. As long as you all die, the history of tonight will be decided by me. In the future, everyone will know that it was Su Yilun, the demonic cultivator, who barged into the Starry School and killed all the students in the Alcade branch. He even killed College Chief Xing and College Chief Meng. I, the College Chief, went through a lot of trouble to capture Su Yilun. At that time, I will still be the College Chief of Starry School. Even the doors of the Ziyun world's royal family will be open to me, and all of you will just be bones under my feet. Ha! Clang! Diyu Dao's laughter did not stop. Two Guqin's sounds rang out at the same time. Ning Yaoguang had launched an attack on Diyu Dao. On the other hand, Mayan Zither has triggered the Shun musician skill, Mutual Accord Contract. Dazzling golden runes were drawn in the air bit by bit, forming a formation. In just a few seconds, a huge spirit-locking talisman was drawn in the void. The zither sounded again. The spirit-locking talisman was activated, and the whole talisman in the void suddenly burned. Specks of golden light fell from the sky like fireworks, landing on Meng Baichuan, Xing Danqing, and the others, as well as the devil soldiers. A strange scene occurred. When the demonic aura coming from the demonic soldiers touched the golden light, it sizzled as if it was being burned. Then, it disappeared without a trace. There were even a few demon soldiers with thick demon chi on their bodies that let out shrill screams and tumbled to the ground. How could Xing Danqing and Meng Baichuan not know this? They unleashed their full cultivation and subdued all the demonic soldiers. At the same time, Ning Yaoguang's sword landed on Diyu Dao's neck. Diyu Dao looked at the demon soldiers that had fallen to the ground in disbelief. These demon soldiers had always been his life-saving talismans, his last trump card. However, the demon soldiers that he had placed his last hope on were subdued so easily. Chapter 1682. Xiuxian Continent. In the Spirit Wind Palace of the Polar Domain, the atmosphere was solemn. The immortals standing on both sides had more or less fear and uneasiness in their eyes. There were also people who turned their eyes to the throne from time to time. Only when they saw that powerful and handsome godlike man could their hearts settle down. Of course, there were also people who looked at the door from time to time, as if waiting for some news. Finally, a black figure slowly formed at the door of the palace. The eyes of everyone in the palace brightened. He's finally back. Star Wolf strode into the palace and respectfully knelt down in front of Di Mingju. Subordinate Star Wolf pays respect to the Lord. This subordinate has already investigated the movements of the Nether Realm and the Devil World. Lord Star Wolf, Quickly tell us, what are these two parties plotting? Before Deming Ju could reply, someone below had already impatiently asked. It's not that the gods of the polar domain couldn't hold their breath, but the movements of the nether realm this time were simply too strange. First, the holy dark Een flame suddenly reignited. Later, it was rumored that the only son of the Lord of the Nether Realm, Een Yuani, had obtained the inheritance of the Holy Spirit of the Netherworld and was about to become the real, Holy Emperor of the Netherworld. Now, he was frequently meeting with the devil generals of the devil world, as if they were plotting something. The strength of the polar domain was naturally much higher than that of the Nether Realm. But if the Nether Realm really formed an alliance with the devil world, then the polar domain would be attacked from all sides. This was a result that the gods of the polar domain didn't want to see. Starwolf lowered his eyes and said in a low voice, "The Nether Realm will form a marriage alliance with the devil race." As soon as these words came out, the entire hall was quiet for a moment. Marriage alliance? Who will marry who? Starwolf, it is said that the revered demon Lord Junshirtian has a daughter who is wandering outside. But whether this daughter is dead or alive, whether she is ugly or beautiful, where she is, no one knows. But the revered demon lord suddenly had the idea to arrange a marriage alliance for his daughter. Then who will marry the revered demon lord's daughter in the Nether Realm? Is it Een Yuani? Starwolf, not Een Yuani. Een Wuji didn't want his precious son, Een Yuani, to marry a wife of unknown origin, so he secretly prepared another candidate. It is said that that person is also Een Wuji's son. However, for some unknown reason, no one knows of his existence. As Starwolf spoke, his expression became strange for a moment. Who knew that Een Wuji hadn't even vaguely suggested that he wanted to replace Een Yuani with another son? Junshirtian, the Dark Lord, mocked Een Yuani in public and said that he didn't deserve his daughter. On the other hand, the other son that Een Wuji mentioned, Junshirtian, said that he was barely acceptable. Recalling Een Yuani's gloomy face, Starwolf couldn't help but want to laugh. However, his smile quickly disappeared and his expression turned solemn. But no matter what, the demon world and the Nether Realm are very satisfied with this result. If nothing unexpected happens, I'm afraid the marriage contract will be concluded in the next few days. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of the people who were listening to this news, as if it was an anecdote, changed drastically. Yes. What did it mean for both sides to be satisfied? This meant that the demon race and the Nether Realm would form an alliance without any ill feelings. The merging of these two enormous forces would pose a great threat to the polar domain in the future. Lord, someone raised his head and said excitedly, "We must stop this matter. We must not let the Nether Realm and the demon race form an alliance. Otherwise, there will never be a day of peace in the polar domain." Chapter 1683. Deming Ju faintly looks at the speaker. How do you think we should stop it? This question caused everyone to be stumped. Yes. How could they stop this? Could it be that he would rush to the demon world and say, "You are not allowed to have a marriage alliance with the Nether Realm"? Starwolf suddenly coughed lightly and said, "Junju and Shang, there's another piece of news from the fiend's side. It is said that Junshirtian is not particularly satisfied with the son-in-law candidate. Therefore, the marriage certificate does not intend to form an eternal contract, but only a 3-year marriage. After 3 years, whether his daughter is not found or his daughter is not satisfied with the marriage, the engagement will be annulled." It's only a 3-year engagement. Starwolf's words caused the eyes of many people in the hall to light up. An elder on the rightmost side of the line immediately stepped out from the crowd and said excitedly, "Lord, didn't the demon lord say that he wanted to find the most outstanding man in the world to be his son-in-law? In this world, which man could be more outstanding than Jun Shang? As long as you propose a marriage alliance with the demon race, then what does the Nether Realm have to do with you?" Yes. Anyway, it was only a 3-year engagement. If the demon lord's daughter was really unbearable, they could just call off the engagement. In this way, we can not only dissolve the alliance between the netherworld and the devil realm, but also pull the devil race to our side. It's truly killing two birds with one stone. Wonderful, wonderful. In the High Sky Hall, everyone's discussion was in full swing. They could practically see the miserable state of Enwuji, the lord of the nether region, crying bitterly. As for worrying about the engagement, what a joke. What kind of person was there Jun Shang? In this world, is there a man more outstanding, more handsome, and more powerful than Jun Shang? No, not a single one. If Jun Shitian doesn't even like his lord, then his daughter doesn't need to get married. However, Elder Chong, Han Yi, and the others who are closest to Di Mingju, and even Xing Lang, quietly shrink their necks. Please don't say any more. Didn't they feel that the entire Lingxiao Palace was about to freeze? Finally, the murderous and piercingly cold atmosphere in the hall made the people who were discussing in full swing feel that something was wrong. You mean you want me to arrange a marriage? The man's cold voice was no different from his usual tone, but when it entered the ears of everyone in the hall, it caused them to shiver. Then, unexpectedly, he raised his head and met a pair of cold and sharp blue eyes. Some people's legs went soft, and they almost knelt on the ground. Oh my God! Jun Shang is angry. Di Mingju looks down at the deathly pale complexions of the people below. They're in fear and trepidation. The corner of his mouth slowly hooks up into a mocking arc. When did the polar domain become so timid that they had to rely on marriage to protect themselves? A marriage alliance between the nether realm and the demon race has made you so anxious that you have even thrown away your pride and dignity in the past. Di Mingju rarely says such long words, but each of his words is like a heavy hammer, ruthlessly pounding on everyone's hearts. The faces of everyone in the hall were filled with shame, and they wished they could find a hole to hide in. Yes, what was wrong with them? The future mistress of the polar domain. How honorable, how sacred a position was that? What if he could casually betroth it to the daughter of the demon lord? What if his daughter was not beautiful at all? What if the daughter was just a mortal? Could it be that the entire polar domain had to revere such an unbearable woman as the divine empress? No, no, no. Absolutely not. This is simply more frightening than facing the alliance between the nether realm and the demon race. Chapter 1684. Di Mingju slowly stands up, his cold and untamed gaze sweeping over everyone present. Ben Jun's choice of wife. Only Ben Jun can decide. If any of you mention a marriage alliance with the demon race again, sure, this lord will fulfill your wish. I'll give you the position of Polar Domain's sovereign lord, and let you go and form a marriage alliance with the fiend race. How about it? No, no, no. Absolutely not. Emperor, please calm down. We won't dare to do it again. The daughter of the demon race is nothing. How can she be worthy of our emperor? If a mere nether realm wants to form an alliance with the demon race, then so be it. If they dare to invade my polar domain, then they won't be able to return. Di Mingju sneers. Then let Ben Jun see your performance. With that, he disappeared in a flash. My lord, Jun Shang. Elder Yu, who was the first to propose the marriage, was dumbfounded. Jun Shang's aura disappeared. Where did you go? Elder Chang coughed lightly, and with a straight face, he said, You've disappointed the ruler too much. You actually want the ruler to marry to maintain the peace of the polar domain. What's the difference between this and pushing the ruler into a marriage alliance? Elder Yu and the rest of the polar realm's exalted gods all revealed ashamed expressions. There were even people whose eyes were brimming with tears as they said, We have failed to live up to the Lord's expectations, to actually think of such a cowardly way to avoid battle. Is His Majesty really going to abdicate the throne and never come back because he's angry with us? How can this be? The polar domain's monarch can only be Lord alone. The future mistress of the polar domain is Jun Shang's wife. Only Jun Shang can choose her. From now on, we won't dare to say anything. Jun Shang, Please come back quickly. Elder Chang cough cough cough. Don't worry. Although his lordship is angry, he also said that it depends on your performance. I think Jun Shang is just going to the Xiojin continent to relax, and we'll be back in a few days. Don't tell me you guys haven't noticed that Star Wolf, Han Yi, and the rest have already caught up? Only then did everyone return to their senses. When they found out that the monarch was still the monarch, they heaved a long sigh of relief. The crowd quickly dispersed. Since they had decided not to form a marriage alliance with the demon race, the polar domain naturally had to start preparing for war. Elder, you couldn't help but mutter, "Why do I feel that Lord has been going to the lower realms more and more often recently, and the time he spent there is also getting longer and longer?" Elder Chang coughed twice again, then turned around and left with an indifferent expression. Hee, that's because the noble future mistress of the polar domain you speak of is in the lower realm. Just wait. Jun Shang will soon give all of you a big surprise. Tian Min. From time to time, clanking sounds could be heard from Lung Qingwan's room. What followed was the sound of whipping, the painful moans of the maids, and the pleading voices. Useless thing! Useless things! I asked you to prepare the immortal medicine needed for the Fenghua quicksand, but you can't even do such a small thing. What use do I have for you? Sob, sob, sob. Young master, spare me. Young master, spare me. The maid cried and begged for mercy as she rolled on the ground. It's not that we don't want to prepare, It's that after the polar domain announced to sever their relationship with our Tiani men, those shops that supply immortal medicines no longer agreed to sell us immortal medicines at a discount. Some rare immortal medicines, they would rather keep them than sell them to us. This servant has no other choice, sob, 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 sob. How could Lung Qingwan listen to what she's saying? The whip in her hand lashes out even more fiercely. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.